Chapter 301 _ Goodbye, marine trash. Regarding Maine's struggle, the virtual and real people sneered, bent down and picked up the long knife scattered on the ground, cut it directly at Maine's head. In the nick of time, the wind was galloping, and the endless raindrops on the horizon, like a torrent, rushed towards the virtual and real people. It's useless. The virtual and real person sneered, his body rippled abnormally, and countless raindrops actually passed through the virtual and real person's body. At this moment, it seemed that the virtual and real people were air and did not exist at all. This is the ability of a virtual person to freely turn the body and the things he touches into nothingness and reality, and at the moment of turning into nothingness, he can neutralize any attack. Undoubtedly, this ability, in terms of assassination, is like God's help, making people hard to guard against. Shushi, it looks like you succeeded. At the front, a masked CPO looked at Maine, who was pale, and was surprised. Just a guy who is good at ranged attacks, with extremely poor melee capabilities. Real people, disdain. Go, kill them for me. The newly arrived CPO issued an order, and the next moment, everyone who was surrounded by them turned towards Maine and killed them. At this time, Bej forcibly broke through the battle circle, activated his ability, turned into a fortress, and put Maine into his body. Castle Fruit. For Bej's actions, the virtual and real people just watched, and that expression was still dismissive. After all, in addition to being able to intervene between nothingness and reality, virtual and real people can penetrate any matter without effect. Of course, seastone and other things are invalid. Changed into nothingness, the virtual and real people wanted to penetrate the castle, but they were bounced back. Interesting, except for seastone, this is the first time I can't wear something. Patting the dust that didn't exist on his body, the virtual and real person held the scarlet dagger, and his voice was a little cold. Do you think it's safe to hide in a turtle shell? Sneering again and again, the virtual and real person nodded at the CPO. Give me an attack, a lifeless attack, and see how powerful this turtle shell is. If it is said that the castle cannot be moved, then the virtual and real people can kill Bej and others as long as they hollow out the ice field, but the key point is that the castle that Bej turned into can move, so it can only be attacked hard. And with Bej's strength, it will be a matter of time before he can't hold on under this boundless attack. The attack from the outside world made Bej grit his teeth and hold on, and, as far as possible, moved in Chin Luo's direction. In this war, they miscalculated and were caught off guard. They didn't expect that the other party had the ability to resist the big killer of Maine, and there was such a strange CPO. At this time, Bej's body, the smell of blood filled the air. The entire castle shook, and Bej's pained voice came. Bang! With a loud bang, everyone returned to the outside world, only to see Bej recovering, covered in bruises and spitting blood from his mouth. Obviously, he was attacked by the outside world, and he could no longer hold on. This time, Maine was completely exposed to the siege. The situation is at stake. Completely exposed to the sun, around, the virtual reality and other CPO members, with the controlled army, surrounded them. Suddenly, at this moment, a deep cold breath, for 1,000 years, directly grabbed the virtual and real people. A huge crisis has come again, but this time, it is a real person. The huge shock wave formed spikes and spread to the end, and the figure of the virtual and real person disappeared. At this moment, an icy storm swept the audience directly, and not far away, a divinely beautiful ice bird with wings spread out, controlling the wind and snow, appeared in everyone's sight. It's the new combat power of the first Emperor Pirates, the person with the ability to freeze fruit, Hitsugaya Toshiro. With fear on his face, the virtual and real person appeared on the other side, looking at the beautiful face that had recovered to his original body, and revealed his identity. Are you all right? With cold eyes, Hitsugaya Toshiro recovered his body, and the wind and snow still fluttering all over his body asked Maine. It's okay, thanks. With lingering fears, Maine responded. Do you think that with one more person there will be a chance of victory? Full of mockery, the virtual and real people held the dagger, and the dried blood on it caused the entire dagger to be scarlet. Napoleon, protect Beige and Maine. Hitsugaya Toshiro squinted coldly, admonished Napoleon, and then fixed his eyes on the real person. Insanity. For Hitsugaya Toshiro's unilateral announcement, there was a surge of anger on the opposite side. Silently, the figure of the virtual and real person began to fade and disappeared in front of everyone. At first glance, the ability of virtual and real people is very strange. And Hitsugaya Toshiro, at the moment the virtual and real people disappeared, became vigilant, and there was countless ice all over his body. Obviously, knowing the abilities of the virtual and real, Hitsugaya Toshiro directly put a layer of armor on himself to guard against the sneak attack of the virtual and real. At the same time, Napoleon fought with the remaining CPOs, protecting Maine and Beige. On Hitsugaya Toshiro's perfect face, a trace of blood was splashed at this moment, and it looked very strange. The icy cold air erupted, forming spikes, directly towards the virtual and real people, and penetrated the past. But at this time, the ability of the virtual and real people is used, and those ice thorns, which pass directly through the body, have no effect at all. However, the virtual and real people also retreated, because Napoleon also issued a slash at this time. Go ahead and kill them. The virtual and real people failed to assassinate, and the CPO on the side found an opportunity and started. Exuding a rolling ferocity, it blasted towards Hitsugaya Toshiro. Accompanied by a huge roar, ice chips splashed all over the venue, and when the fog dissipated, it was discovered that a black fist had hit the CPO heavily. The battle situation was in crisis, and it was pressing step by step, and the First Emperor pirates and others also gathered together. 0. It can be said that the virtual and real people are the most important part. If there are no virtual and real people, then the result will never be like this. Ha ha, you can't escape, this time, your First Emperor pirates are doomed to fail. Standing together, the virtual and real people held the dagger, and the victory was in their hands. Like a victor, they declared their pride, while the others sneered and looked at the First Emperor pirates and others with a playful look like they were watching their prey. Even if you die, I will drag you to bury you. His fists were entwined with great energy, and Beige's eyes were bloodshot, like a demon, looking at everyone with hatred. Unfortunately, you don't have that chance anymore, kill them. The remaining CPOs pursed their lips. But just when the CPO was complacent, it suddenly came and radiated, and time seemed to freeze, and behind him, a horrifying voice resounded like a devil's gasp, ringing in his ears. CPOs who had stepped out were all stiff, and their faces became unnaturally pale. Dangerous, extremely dangerous, that lowness, it was like a demon holding their hearts, making it hard for them to breathe. The audience was silent, everyone, their bodies were out of control, and they were afraid that they would be difficult for themselves. Captain. Opening their mouths, the First Emperor pirates and the others looked at the figures behind the CPO and the others. For some reason, their teeth chattered, and their whole body trembled. Da. Underscore. The sound of stepping on the ground was depressing. CPO and the others turned around with numb scalps, looking at the frosty face that suddenly appeared, their pupils shrank, and they swallowed. 2. Chapter 302 underscore. Go to hell. The CPO lost control, and even took the lead, gathering armament energy and blasting Qin-Luo. At this moment, Qin-Luo's eyes saw that Ma Yin was seriously injured, her face was pale, and her brows were wrinkled. Move my hand and die. His eyes were instantly red. Qin-Luo looked at the fist that the CPO slammed over. Unprecedented rage, a tyrannical will, with Qin-Luo as the center, forming a monstrous might, crushing everything. This conqueror. CPO who was attacking was sweating profusely and wanted to struggle hard, but at this moment, his body stopped uncontrollably. The body is so scared that it loses control, extreme fear. Hi. The sound of flesh and blood being torn apart is shocking, and the internal organs and blood are flying, right in front of everyone's eyes. The CPO who was shocked by Conqueror, was Chin Luo, grabbed his mouth with both hands and tore it in half. The pungent bloody smell, the horrific bone and blood foam, and various organs scattered lightly on the ground. It was a scene like hell, but it was even more frightening. Too fast, everything happened too fast. Escape, everyone wants to escape, no doubt, in absolute rage at the moment, that Conqueror, like a sticky swamp, makes it difficult for them to break free. All be damned. Bathed in blood, Chin Luo turned around and stepped on an intestine with his right foot. The figure began to flicker and darken, and flames of two colors, one gold and one dark, also began to wrap his body. Go to hell. Unable to bear it, the remaining CPOs who were alive slammed into Chin Luo with a terrified face. However, the shock of Conqueror and the gap in strength are difficult to make up. What's more, Chin Luo now has one foot in the demonization. Bang! Grabbing the CPO's hand with one hand, Chin Luo grimaced and was about to kill him, but at this moment, the real person moved and appeared directly beside Chin Luo. The sea-stone dagger in his hand stabbed Chin Luo's heart. Captain, be careful! Besh cried. PFF'd. Blood sprayed, and a scream pierced the eardrums. Face! Chin Luo grabbed the CPO's fist and pulled it away, directly using it as a shield, so that the dagger of the virtual and real person stabbed directly into the CPO's chest. Empty. Void. His mouth kept spitting blood, and the CPO looked at the dagger on his chest in disbelief. It was also at this moment that Chin Luo started, punched, and slammed into the virtual and real people, and the whole atmosphere screamed at that moment. Transformation. The pupils shrank, and the virtual and real people immediately used their abilities to make themselves nihilistic. There is no doubt that Chin Luo's fist passed directly through the virtual and real people's chest, and the terrifying power directly tore the ground, forming an abyss spread to the end. It's useless, go to hell. Twisting his face, the virtual and real people took out the dagger from the CPO, faced Chin Luo again, and stabbed it. Eyes, cold to the bone, Chin Luo looked at the real person like a dead person, throwing away the CPO directly, and even grabbed the sea-stone dagger with one hand. Sparks splashed, and with the metal-like collision, Chin Luo's right hand was armed and wrapped, and he firmly held the dagger. It was difficult to advance an inch, and the virtual and real people widened their pupils with a look of astonishment. He knew that it was a devil fruit-capable person, but why, when he held the sea-stone dagger, he still had so much strength? The huge force pulled past, the virtual and real people lost their hands, and the sea-stone dagger came out directly. PFF'd. The blood flower exploded, and the virtual and real man groaned, spitting blood in his mouth, and his face was full of fear, because his own dagger was stuck in his heart. How is it possible? Holding Chin Luo tightly with both hands, it is still unimaginable for a virtual and real person. Pat. The trembling body fell to the ground. Chin Luo's face was tyrannical, cold like a demon, but in just a short moment, he killed 3 CPOs. You know, because of the strange ability of the virtual and real, even Admiral will kill him with one hit if he is not careful. There are also the 2 CPOs just now, although their own strength is not very high, at most they are Admiral, but their ability should not be underestimated. Unfortunately, those who control are vulnerable in front of Chin Luo's Conqueror. It can be said that this battle is subverting the imagination. From the side, it can be seen how angry Chin Luo is at the moment, how powerful, how powerful. This is the gap between the Emperor and the Admiral. Even if the virtual and real people have the strength of ordinary Admiral, so what? In the hands of the 5 raging Emperors, they are just a little more powerful ants, and they can still be trampled to death. And the real people are too confident in their sea-stone daggers, so confident that they lose their lives. Flames were burning all over his body, but Chin Luo felt extremely cold. Raising his feet, accompanied by the splashing of brains, Chin Luo forcefully stepped on the heads of these CPOs and real people, because even if they were stabbed in the heart by the sea-stone weapon, with that powerful constitution, they still did not die. Therefore, Qin-luo gave the last ride. After dealing with the funeral here, Qin-luo looked up at the sky. Whoosh! Transformed into Cheng-hong, Qin-luo was full of murderous aura, and charged towards Earl Red. And Earl Red, with an ugly face and a disagreement, also rushed forward. At the same time, the knees collided with each other, and the two of them were lifted into the sky in a vertical line, and circles of air pressure were continuously generated between the two, causing the surrounding to be full of tearing punches. Damn, this kid's power is stronger again. The elbows collided, and Earl Red's face was ashen. He felt the burning in strength, and felt a little sullen in his heart. At this moment, the two of them looked a little embarrassed, especially the Red Earl, whose clothes were tattered and his face was covered in blood. The two fists were added together, and the Red Earl groaned, the whole body bowed, and an invisible shock wave spread on the back, shaking the space. With a huge roar, Qin-luo found an opportunity and kicked the Red Earl's waist, causing the Red Earl to blast towards the distant island like a shooting star. The loud bang raised the ground, forming terrifying waves, collapsing mountain peaks, causing the entire island to sink. The surrounding sea area is even more tumultuous. Falling down, Qin-luo had a fierce face, and stepped on the head of the Red Earl with his right foot, wanting to kill him directly. The huge deep pit, the smoke and dust dissipated, the Red Earl disappeared, and even made a counterattack, and the right foot produced a sonic boom. However, a giant flame hand grabbed Count Red's right foot directly and groaned. Qin-luo's right hand slammed into his chest because of its enormous strength, but he also succeeded in grabbing Count Red. Deep cold isho, Qin-luo's blood-red teeth made Earl Red's eyes jump. Suddenly, Earl Red felt that his center of gravity was lost, and Qin-luo lifted his whole body, like a sandbag, and slammed it back and forth to the ground. For a time, the whole island roared. Landslides and fissures, deep pits formed, and cracks began to spread everywhere, destroying everything. Chapter 303 PFF'd. Every time he fell, the Red Earl opened his mouth and vomited blood, trying to resist, but that power was too powerful. The gravel in the sky, constantly splashing, started slowly, the sea boiled, and the entire island was abruptly smashed into half by Qin-luo. Ha, ha. Breathing violently, Qin-luo vomited blood, and stopped moving with a disheveled hair. His face was pale, but his eyes were full of coldness. Obviously, Qin-luo had vented a lot during the beating. Bowing his head and carrying Earl Red like a dead dog, Qin-luo was full of killing intent. A long spear appeared in his hand, and without hesitation, stabbed it directly at Earl Red's heart. Flesh and blood splattered, and at the critical moment, the Red Earl bleed from his 7 orifices, controlled his body abruptly, and avoided the key point, causing the long spear in Qin-luo's hand to pass through his right shoulder, forming a chill in his heart. Swapping wounds for wounds, Earl Red was equally vicious, resisting the collapse of his body. His right hand formed a sharp claw, and firmly grabbed onto Qin-luo's chest, forming 5 bloodstains that could be seen deep in the bones. However, Qin-luo didn't blink, and kicked the Red Earl's stomach with his right foot. On the spot, the Red Earl moved out a terrifying gully on the ground like a cannonball, and finally rolled on a hill and fell to the ground. 26 in gravel. The chest heaved violently, and the blood flowed continuously, revealing the upper body that was red and blue, full of wounds. The flames brushed, and it was charred black, and then it healed visibly to the naked eye. The flames stretched, Qin-luo's eyes were cold, and he slowly walked towards the Red Earl. At this moment, the Red Earl stood up from the ground, swaying, almost unsteady, because he felt that his whole body was falling apart, and even the pain was a little numb. Cough, cough. With a pale face, the Red Earl bent over and coughed, and a trace of flesh foam was continuously spit out. It was obvious that the Red Earl was severely injured. Looking up, with his blood-stained eyes open, Earl Red looked at Qin-luo, who was approaching step by step, and suddenly smiled. Ha ha. Indifferent, Qin-luo dismissed him, very calm. Boy, I'll make you die miserably. The laughter disappeared, and the Red Earl had a gloomy face, and a dark red mist suddenly rolled over his body. At the same time, countless blood on the ice field with a radius of hundreds of thousands of meters formed rivers and rushed to the Red Earl. The huge storm formed a blood-colored tornado, which connected the world one after another. Qin Luo stood in the storm and watched with cold eyes. If you look up from the sky, you will find that in this war, countless blood are pouring towards the Red Earl as if alive, and even some people who are injured but weaker can't control their own blood. Became a corpse. Sticky and disgusting. At this moment, the Red Earl was standing in the storm. Countless blood condensed all over his body. A pair of dark red bone wings slowly formed behind his back. What was even more incredible was that the wounds on the Red Earl's body had disappeared. Boom! The powerful breath swept through the clouds, turned into a storm, and subverted everything. He opened his mouth, the upper and lower fangs gradually became longer, the Red Earl's emerald eyes were completely dark red, and the whole face seemed to have not seen the sun for many years, and it was a bit strange. Reaching out, the 5 fingers were white, and the dark red nails exuded a sigh of relief. Full beast form vampire. At this moment, the Red Earl took out all his strength, the figure slowly hung in the air, the huge dark red bone wings behind him flapped. Without a trace, the Red Earl who transformed into a vampire slowly dissipated, turning into foam like an afterimage. At this moment, close at hand, Earl Red's evil figure appeared in front of Qin Luo. PFF'd. His face twitched, blood spurted out of Qin Luo's mouth, his entire body bowed and whistled, turning into a cannonball. The giant mountain collapsed, Qin Luo was half knelt in the gravel, wiping the blood from his mouth, looking at the evil figure in the air. Slowly, the corners of his mouth curved up, revealing a wicked smile. Qin Luo's sudden appearance, slaughtering the 3 CPOs, and then the arrival of the Red Earl, all happened too quickly. Looking up, everyone looked at the violent catastrophe in the sky, and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. On the other side of the battlefield, Maine was assassinated by the virtual and real people, and the Mirror God King escaped, but instead of going with the virtual and real people, he shifted his target and set his sights on other members of the First Emperor Pirates. Just when the Mirror God King frantically killed the members of the First Emperor Pirates, suddenly, a huge crisis spread all over the body. Akoku, the Mirror God, then dodged, and the next moment, an ice spear stuck on the ground and penetrated deep into the ice. Haishugaya Tushiro. Standing still, feeling the astonishing cold air, the Mirror God King's face was a little heavy. Standing out of thin air, Hitsugaya Toshiro has a frosty face, and is surrounded by wind and snow, like the King of Ice, which cannot be desecrated. The temperature dropped instantly. With his skirt fluttering, Hitsugaya Toshiro stood in the air like this, pointing with one hand. The entire sky, countless ice weapons, formed a long river, flocking to the Mirror God King. Along the way, everything freezes. Taking a step back, the Mirror God King's face was ugly, and he used his abilities to completely close himself up. Pieces of mirrors directly surrounded himself. Boom, boom. The sky was full of ice and snow, one after another roared, and there were continuous explosions. A few minutes later, an iceberg stood on the ice sheet. Frowning, Hitsugaya Toshiro could feel that the man was not dead. Sure enough, with a few clicks, iceberg stomped, revealing a heavy figure inside. Looking at the intact King Mirror God, Hitsugaya Toshiro frowned. Hair fluttered, Hitsugaya Toshiro's eyes turned cold, and along with the cold wind, a behemoth spread its wings in midair. Ice Wheel Pill, Ice Dragon. The cold light lingered, the terrifying cold air swept through, the roar of the ice dragon, a white torrent, slammed into the Mirror God King. In the world of extreme ice, everything is frozen. His face was ashen, the Mirror God King was simply there was no time to make other actions, so he could only use his abilities, holding a mirror with both hands and blocking it in front of him. The vastness is coming, like the Ice Age, the torrent is endless, the Mirror God King's feet are deep in the ground, firmly supporting the mirror, blocking the torrent. Damn! The ice surface kept exploding, and the Mirror God King gritted his teeth and insisted, spitting blood constantly from his mouth, and his body kept retreating. The surrounding, rapidly spread, the icy cold air directly formed a terrifying wave, drowning towards the surrounding, visible to the naked eye, those dead bodies and those who were still fighting, all frozen and turned into ice sculptures. The Ice Age is here again. Impossible. With a twisted face, the Mirror God King roared, because the mirror he made had begun to be covered with frost and was gradually covered by ice. After all, the trauma that Maine gave him was too severe, and it seemed a little difficult to deal with Hitsugaya Toshiro. The terrifying power is constantly impacting, and the ice dragons in the sky are flying like phoenixes. One after another, a huge ice dragon appeared, and 2 wind and snow tornadoes, at the same time, drowned the path towards the Mirror God King. No. The roar was constant, and it was simply unstoppable. From the foot to the upper body, the Mirror God King stretched out his hand and turned it into an ice sculpture. As the Mirror God King was frozen, the mirror puppet that was originally copied also disappeared. Looking at everything that was frozen in front of him, he couldn't help but face the white-haired boy in midair. A flash of fear flashed. Chapter 304 And Hitsugaya Toshiro slowly fell in front of the frozen Mirror God King, coldly, without hesitation, kicked directly on the Mirror God King. The cracks spread like a mirror, and the Mirror God Akoku turned into ice block, turned into ice chips, and died without a place for burial. On the edge of the sky, looking around, countless ice sheets have melted, corpses and gunpowder smoke are everywhere, and countless island fragments floating in the sea have sunk to the bottom of the sea in an unstoppable air pressure. Roar! The thunderous cry, the powerful air wave, subverted everything. The head was panic-stricken and said, a giant ape wrapped in a billowing devilish energy, with a pitch-black tail, holding a crystal rod the size of a house, with golden red eyes, exuding a proud will, looking at the opposite side irritably, the stone giant that covered the cloud and the curtain roared. It was clearly visible that this devil ape was like a high-rise building, covered with bruises, and the thick black feet had been dyed red with blood, but the breath of this devil ape was getting more and more tyrannical and crazier. Boom! The ground exploded, and the magic ape rose into the sky, like a firefly, rushing into the black shadow that was endless. Monkey King, remember, it's my stone god King Boats who killed you. Heaven and earth tilted, and the boundless stone palms, like turning their hands into the sky, rolled down towards the impacting demon ape. Roar! Roaring and standing with sharp teeth, the demonic energy from the whole body of the demon ape burst out, and a shadow the size of a mountain spread to the sky, stirring the boundless momentum, facing the stone palm that fell from the sky, and slammed it. Small, vast, and the sky keeps roaring. Hey! Flying out, a black shadow slammed into the ground, and a storm of gravel spread around. At the same time, countless stones in the sky turned into meteor showers, scattered in all directions. Probing out, in the abyss, a dark-haired arm grabbed the ground, and then a black shadow crashed to the ground. Ha, ha, diaresis. He opened his mouth, dripping blood continuously. The demon monkey held up the crystal stick and looked at the giant standing in the sky, hoarsely grinning, becoming more and more irritable. Slowly starting, the magic ape began to change, and then one foot stepped on the red fire, and the Monkey King with 3 heads and 6 arms appeared on the ground. Recklessly, it is impossible to fight, this is the lesson of blood. Looking up, looking at the broken stone giant, for the first time, Sun Wukong began to use his brain. Because of his special ability, that guy can move freely among the giant stone giants. If he wants to catch him, he is simply looking for a needle in a haystack. In this case, he can only narrow the scope. Lifting the stick, full of anger, Sun Wukong turned into an afterimage and rushed to the cloud. Boom, boom. Constantly bombarding, like a demolition team, Sun Wukong began to smash the giant's arms and body, and began to push the stone god king to the head. Not good. Like the head of a mountain, the stone god king himself appeared here, looking at the figure that was close at hand, his whole body became cold. Grandson, see how you run. His face was fierce, the golden cudgel became bigger. He directly cut his head in the middle, and rose into the sky, a meteor, and the head was separated. Immediately after that, he kept attacking and started slowly. The huge head began to get smaller and smaller, gradually compressing the space of the Stone God King. Run, let you run. The tyranny was abnormal, and the head like a giant mountain was smashed alive in the air. Sun Wukong looked at the exposed real body with a hideous face. About it, the stone god Akoku flew up and down, wanting to return to the ground, because as long as he stood on the ground, he was invincible. Although it is said that Sun Wukong may be a little out of touch at ordinary times, or even stunned, but the fighting instinct may not be. On the contrary, it is extremely cruel. Obviously, from the compression of the Stone God King's activity space, it can be seen that Sun Wukong has found a solution to the Stone God King. Grandson, where do you want to go? Appearing out of thin air, Sun Wukong grinned, looking at the Stone God King who was hurriedly trying to land on the ground. The golden hoop in his hand, without hesitation, waved it towards the sky. With a click, blood spurted out, and the crystal rod slammed into the belly of the Stone God King, and then the huge force directly sent the Stone God King to the sky. Standing up from the ground, he stretched out his 3 heads and 6 arms. Sun Wukong followed closely behind him, like bamboo shoots falling from the rain. The golden cudgel in his hand bombarded the Stone God King's body, and the 3 heads and 6 arms did not fall down. Beating back and forth. One after another, the clouds shattered, and in the air, the Stone God King lost everything he could rely on, and could only resist with difficulty with the fighting technique. At the beginning, he might be able to resist a little, but facing Sun Wukong's 3 heads and 6 arms, he started slowly, and he was already caught in the abuse. Vomited blood, and armament consumed more and more, stick after stick, punch after punch, the body of the Stone God King began to soften, because he was shattered by Sun Wukong, his bones alive, and only one breath was left. Exist. Falling to the ground, smoke and dust splashed everywhere. Sun Wukong stood on the mountain, holding the dying Stone God King with one hand. His teeth were cold, and his body was covered in blood. Wounds of different sizes appeared on Sun Wukong. Previously, he did not believe in evil, so he directly turned into a demon ape and fought against the giant stone. Once or twice, he was severely injured. In the end, I have to admit that in terms of strength, I can't fight against the giant stone, so I can only give up the reckless fight and compress the opponent's range of activities. Diaris is vulnerable. Standing on the ground you are a god, but in the air, you are a grasshopper. Holding the Stone God King, the ground beneath Sun Wukong's feet was directly dyed red, full of the smell of gorillas, which was dyed red by the blood of the 2 of them. Raising his head with difficulty, the Stone God King was dying and wanted to resist, but the previous heavy blow had made him lose his strength. Now, he can only be slaughtered, because he has no strength to speak. Crack. Suddenly, with the bloody pupils protruding from the eye sockets, the head of the Stone God King directly stood up, slowly started, and lost his life. Vulnerable. After snapping his neck, Sun Wukong then threw it, and threw the Stone God King directly on the ground. Then he stood unsteadily and sat on the ground with his buttocks, and his figure returned to normal. The whole body was sore, and Sun Wukong gasped for breath. For a while, he couldn't get up his strength. He could only horse his mouth and slowly recover his strength. Research. Chapter 305 At the same time, on the other side, the sky was flashing, and a torrent of sword energy formed a storm, cutting everything sharply, and at the very center, a figure wrapped in transparent power was struggling to support it. Damn. Face was pale and his body was covered with sword marks. The Ghost King, Saint Sergeant, looked at the woman outside the sword chi storm and couldn't help but feel a sense of horror. As the battle became more and more intense, he did not know when he discovered that all the perceptions of the opponent were improving, especially his intuition. If you say that you just started pressing the other party, then now, the other party is pressing you, because the other party's ability to predict is too weird. The attack of his own mind power is silent. It can be said that it is difficult to detect, However, starting slowly, the blow to that guy is getting less and less, until finally, as if he can meet the future, his own attack, it is difficult to attack the other party. Swordsman, is it really so difficult to deal with? Connecting the heavens and the earth, the whole sky is dark, the sword energy storm that is huge to the sky, tearing everything, and swaying a boundless sharp breath. Outside the tornado, Perona stood in midair, her chest heaving violently, her body was covered with bruises, and her breath was extremely dazzled. Bleeding continued. Perona looked at Saint Sgt in the center of the storm, shook hands, and the magic sword radiated madly. Perona took the man in front of her seriously. Vivi leaned over, the frantic sword she swirled. Perona stared sharply at Saint Scott and made the final match. Invisible figure, 9 streams of light swept across, merged into one, a dazzling light, flocked to the ultimate enemy. The whole body was cold, and Saint Sigurd used his mind to defend himself without any dead ends. However, when Perona made his final attack, in that instant, Saint Sigurd immediately became horrified. Die! Appearing out of thin air, Perona used her strongest move, the ghost sword, to kill the god. Eyes twitching, Saint Sigurd watched, the dazzling light, tearing the atmosphere, slammed into his psychic barrier like a broken bamboo. A roar seemed to fill his entire mind, and Saint Sigurd felt that his head was about to explode, and blood began to overflow from the 7 orifices. Block me, block me. In anger, all the power was condensed and formed at this moment. The eyes were bloodshot, and the special Saint Cgac used all his power. There was a rustling noise, like falling into a frying pan. An invisible competition, a burst of air pressure, swept the surrounding area. The electric light flint. Saint Scott opened his mouth to vomit blood, and the air in front of him began to crack, and his psychic barrier, supporting no longer. No. Silently, a white light cut through the sky, and the whole world was silent. Blood splattered, and in an instant, Saint Sigurd was divided into 2 halves, and the flesh and viscera fell to the ground one after another. Dealing with the enemy, Perona breathed a sigh of relief. On the other side, going deep into the enemy camp, the cadres of the First Emperor pirates led the army, and they were smashing the pirates of Red the Aloof. The situation was one-sided. Completely destroy the Red the Aloof pirates. Finally, after a complete rout, Bej and the others stood on the main ship of the Red Earl's camp. Huh, what is this? Suddenly, Jewelry Bonnie pointed to a pile of special bottles in the corner of the room, because the pink liquid inside made her very curious. How can these things appear here? Bej turned around and looked at the dozen or so bottles of pink liquid in the corner. First, he was horrified and raised his heart. Bej, do you know what this is? Power rock. Power rock. What is it? Jewelry Bonnie looked bewildered. I'm not very clear about this kind of thing. It is said that this is a very destructive bomb. A small bottle can blow up a small island in half. It seems that it has always been in Marine's hands. So powerful. Everyone's expressions changed. Pretend carefully and go back to do research. I estimate that these should be used against us, but unfortunately, I was caught before they were used. Bej had a lingering fear, and after speaking, he carefully put it into his stomach. At this moment, with the defeat of the high-level battle on the Red Earl's side, the war began to be divided. All over the world, looking at the huge battlefield in front of them, they couldn't help but be amazed one after another. Another 5 emperors will be destroyed by the First Emperor pirates. I just didn't expect that in this war, the Red Earl would cooperate with the world government. It's so exciting, this war tilde. Powerful. From this war, I have seen a lot of information, such as the world government, who knows how many such CPOs are, and it is so terrifying, but still died under the hands of Qin Luo, the first emperor. Don't you think the first emperor is terrible? The 3 CPOs are in his hands, like dolls, they can be destroyed easily. Although the 3 CPOs have been injured, they cannot be solved so easily. Idiot, then, no matter how strong the CPO is, he can't possibly be stronger than the 5 emperors. Didn't you see the first emperor in anger? 5 emperors, are they so strong? There are pirates, and they yearn for them. If they are so strong, then don't they want to go to this sea? This war has already been decided, and the rest is the battle between the first emperor and Red the Aloof. I will bet 100,000 Baileys to win. Around the world, casinos, or makeshift open-air gambling booths, with all kinds of bets, have gone into a frenzy. Some are destitute, some become rich in one day. In the eyes of these people, what they see is wealth, because every war, this kind of thing happens. On the contrary, the thoughts of these ordinary people, some ambitious guys, are much more dignified, because no matter which side wins this war, it will usher in the turmoil of the pirate world. Some want to get some benefits in it, and some want to become famous in it. In short, all kinds of ambitions have begun to breed. Boom, boom. The mountains were cut off, the islands collapsed, and the dazzling air pressure lifted the surface and destroyed everything recklessly. Away from the battle center, in a remote place, there was a loud explosion, the entire ice field shattered, and boundless waves swayed. The sky is covered with dark clouds, and a strong will, catering to the dark red thunder, chops down without the sky, and all around, the hurricane is tearing at the moment. Suddenly, the sky and the earth exploded, a dark red figure fell, and the black and red claws slammed heavily on the island according to a flame figure. In an instant, the giant mountain collapsed, like an earthquake, and the endless abyss appeared, tearing apart the entire huge island. Chapter 306 Your first emperor is nothing more than that. The sound of the deep cold turned into red, and it disappeared rapidly. Along the way, the ground burst, endless gravel and soil splashed, and the hills began to collapse. The dark red ferocious bone spurs slapped on the back, and the Red Earl pressed Qin Luo's head with one hand, from head to far, pressed on the ground, constantly moving at super high speed. Along the way, the roar continued. After a sudden pause, Earl Red stomped his feet into the ground. The power in his hands shook the atmosphere, and his veins were violent. With a loud sound, Qin Luo was thrown out. Boom! The shocking gold cracked the stone, the terrifying explosion, Qin Luo, like a meteor, quickly smashed on a giant mountain. The next moment, the sky-shattering blast, covered with endless dust, the mountain peak with dozens of floors collapsed directly. Standing out of thin air, Earl Red rose and fell, and that evil body gave people a sense of visual impact. With dark red eyes, Earl Red sneered as he looked at the constantly blasting dust center, standing tall in the clouds, revealing disdain, because with his full firepower on, the other party was simply vulnerable. It's been a long time, I can't remember how many years, from today, he wants the world to remember that he is lonely. Z hung back. Shaking hands, ferocious nails horrified, that explosive force made the surrounding airflow start to vibrate. Of power, the Red Earl is confident that no one can beat him. This is his confidence, his arrogance. At this moment, a terrifying momentum rushed into the sky, where the collapsed place. The hurricane swept wildly, swaying all the wind and waves, and the scalding temperature radiated through. The air was rippling, and the whole earth was red. Gu dong, ku dong. The magma was bubbling, and at the very center, on the sea of burning magma, a figure slowly raised its head. Stepping out, as if walking on the magma, the black hair flowing with the slightest flames hangs down, full of mystery. At this moment, Qin Luo is the god of fire, above everything. He raised his hand and wiped off the blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Qin Luo's face was like sinking water, his eyes that were not human, stared deeply at the Red Earl. Suddenly, the magma burst, and Qin Luo appeared in front of the Red Earl, carrying the rolling heat wave, which made the Red Earl's pupils shrink and his whole body tensed. Clenching his fist, the explosive force spun, Qin Luo suddenly savagely slammed out. With a cold snort, Earl Red also clenched his fists and rushed out without hesitation. With a dull collision, the two instantly fought together. At this moment, both of them are ruthless, and the fighting technique is used to the extreme. He opened his mouth and vomited blood. Qin Luo's face turned pale, and his chest suffered a heavy blow from the Red Earl, but this was what made Qin Luo go crazy. Regardless of the collapse in his chest, he grabbed the Red Earl's arm, which was a knee. Go up, and also accompanied by flame shock. The huge force separated the two, but the next moment, like a meteor, they slammed together heavily. Sweeping out, the sky burst. Chin Luo squatted, turned his body, put his hands on the ground, like a cannon, kicked the Red Earl's chin with his feet, and the Red Earl, with a grim expression, fell down with his elbows. The confrontation continued, and between the two, there was a rolling excitement. They disappeared out of thin air, and the next moment, the two appeared in the sky, and with a loud noise, they penetrated the clouds. Like a ghost, in the eyes of the world, the sky is only filled with two kinds of light, that is, blood red and golden red. It was like two shining golden wheels, so hot that people could not open their eyes. The mountains were broken, the islands collapsed, and the two of them were like a sandstorm, constantly submerging. Suddenly, they took off into the sky, and the two of them chased after me. They started slowly, they vomited blood, and the battle was already heated up. Flesh and blood splattered, and 5 scratches appeared on Chin Luo's chest again, with deep bones visible, and Earl Red also took Chin Luo's kick. It's terrifying. Outside, no matter who it is at this moment, they hold their breath and watch the battle inside without blinking. Although they can't see anything, they can only see 2 rays of light fighting, but the sound of explosions coming from inside, and the sound of the island's collapse, enough to shock their minds and bodies. Once again, the world felt the terror of the 5 emperors, and every move could shake the island. 5 emperors. 5 emperors. There is a man who can't suppress the blood in his heart, and delusions can one day become such an existence. I can't keep up with the action at all. Who has the upper hand now? There are pirates, staring at the screen intently, only 2 rays of light flicker in their eyes. I can't see it either. I only see 2 rays of light, one in the sky and another on the ground. Is this still human? Some weak people may not be able to see it, but some people can see it clearly. Example, Sabayati Archipelago, an old man with silver and white hair, has a solemn expression and his eyes change. I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Just relying on your physical quality, you can suppress the Red Earl. What are you waiting for? You are not a devil fruit person at all. Why use the real power of thunder? Whispering alone, the silver-haired old man frowned, looking at the white-hot battle inside with a hint of doubt. The same scene happens all over the world. Only the real masters, or masters who have seen Chin Luo's previous battle scenes, know that so far, the first emperor has not used all his strength. Everyone knows that the first emperor is a monster. Conqueror, armament, observation hockey, and fighting techniques have all reached amazing heights. It can be said that now in the sea, those who can unilaterally resist the first emperor can be counted with both hands. Come here, this even requires Shi Huang not to use his abilities. You must know that in addition to his amazing fighting technique and amazing flame, Shi Huang is also a guy who is good at thunder, even more terrifying than Nami, the god of thunder. But now, the first emperor has not changed from beginning to end, and he has been fighting in the state of flame. With this, he is on a par with Earl Red's all-beast form, and even has the upper hand. This is incredible. It can be seen from this point that the first emperor is already stronger than the Red Earl. Don't think that Earl Red is weak. Even strictly speaking, Earl Red is far more powerful than Bigmom and Kaido. If you look closely at the first 2 emperor battles, you may find that he, the first emperor, has become stronger all the time, or this change it's very subtle, but you must know that at the level of strength of the 5 emperors, if you want to get closer, it is already difficult to reach the sky. 2. Chapter 307 _ How far has your true strength reached? There is a strong person, a feeling of heart palpitations, and even a vague answer has appeared in his mind. Of One Piece King of Pirates Gol D. Roger, the sea has experienced 2 eras, such as the era of One Piece King of Pirates, and the era of Whitebeard. Why is Whitebeard named after the era just by one person? That's because when he was young, Whitebeard was stronger than the other heroes. Whether it was the other 5 emperors or Marine, they couldn't win against Whitebeard in a one-on-one or two-on-one situation. Whitebeard in that period was the representative of power, so he was the strongest man in the world. As long as he was alive, it was his era. But I don't know where to start. Whitebeard is old, and even after the Marineford incident, he has completely disappeared in the public eye. It was also at this time that the first Emperor Pirates appeared in the eyes of the world. He was the first emperor, who successively destroyed Bigmom, Kaido of the Beasts, suppressed Marine, and now went to war with Red the Aloof. Era. You know, at the level of the 5 emperors, it is possible to defeat a person, but if you want to really kill one, it is impossible at all. However, the first emperor did it. Even more than one of the 5 emperors who died in his hands. Of course, if you were a young Whitebeard, he could kill Bigmom and Kaido of the Beasts as well. Don't think that Kaido's absolute defense is invincible, because no matter how powerful the defense is, there is a critical line, and just in time, the Heidei's defense is invincible. Whitebeard has that ability. This is why, when Whitebeard is old, the 5 emperors will exist. An era, representing a real monster. At the beginning, the era belonged to the legendary pirates and marines such as Sora, Red the Aloof, Golden Lion, Roger, Whitebeard, Garp, Sengoku. Some people may be disdainful of reputation, so Roger created for an era, collectively referred to as the One Piece King of Pirates era. Then came the Whitebeard era, and now, a new era is quietly born, and no one can stop it, just because this era is still piled up with blood and bones, strength and corpses. The wind was surging, the whole sky collapsed, and fell down, a dark red figure pierced through the clouds. The explosion was silent, a hurricane, crushing the air, transmitted a harsh dull sound, which was very depressing. Blood splattered, Earl Red's eyes were red with blood, and a bone spur slapped his back, soaring into the sky, and his right fist slammed into Chin Luo's stomach. Wow! Vomit! With a grim face, Chin Luo bowed his body, a wave of air behind him lifted up the clouds. Gritting his teeth, the stench was pungent, Chin Luo stretched out his hand, grabbed Earl Red's wing, and kicked it violently. In an instant, Earl Red opened his mouth and vomited blood, and regardless of it, Wuji pointed at Chin Luo's head and grabbed it. Armed and wrapped, Chin Luo leaned back, and Earl Red bent his fingers, wiping the bridge of his nose. In an instant, the Red Earl withdrew and pressed his claws down sharply, trying to smash Chin Luo's skull, but unfortunately, Chin Luo's arm stopped him. At the same time, Earl Red's right foot slammed out, like a dragon going out to sea, producing a sonic boom, and Chin Luo, without hesitation, slammed his knee against him. At this moment, Earl Red's forehead slammed into Chin Luo. With a ruthless expression on his face, Chin Luo didn't flinch, but he also used his forehead to slam into the Red Earl. The dull sound generated air waves that radiated past, and the two of them only felt that their heads slammed, and the scenery in front of them shook. But even so, the two of them still made moves, which were extremely ruthless. But when the two of them were fighting to the point of white hot, almost at the same time, their scalps exploded, and their faces changed greatly. Buzz! Buzz! The cracking sound was like the vibration of billions of bees flapping their wings, and a terrifying and dangerous breath rushed towards the two of them. As if they had negotiated well, Chin Luo and Earl Hong collided with their fists, then turned into a streamer, pulled away, and opened the distance. Almost the next moment, a shocking torrent passed directly between the two of them and spread to the end. Overturning the river and the sea, the atmosphere cracked, and the ice sheet under his feet cracked into slag and turned into pieces. This sudden intervention force directly made Chin Luo and Earl Hong look ugly. On the horizon, from far to near, a power that stirred the entire sky, like a monstrous wave, surged forward. Edward Newgate. Whitebeard. Standing out of thin air, Chin Luo's upper body was bare, with bloodstains all over it, and the whole body exuded a disgusting smell of blood. He felt the breath of the abyss that was getting closer, and flames were flowing in his eyes. And Earl Red, likewise, was in a state of embarrassment, some wondered why his former opponent would show up at this time. At the same time, people from the outside world also opened their mouths, and some people even rubbed their eyes, for fear that they were wrong. How could Whitebeard be here? Has the strongest man in the world finally appeared? I thought he was dead. One person, Whitebeard is one person. Does he want to intervene in the war between the first emperor and Red the Aloof alone? Doubt and surprise, except for a few people who understood, the whole world was stunned. Although there were many accidents in this war, no one thought that Whitebeard, who had disappeared for a long time, appeared at this time. What does this mean? Kulala, it looks like I'm not late. The huge body, like a big mountain, weighed down the entire battlefield, unable to breathe. You old man, what are you doing here? The Red Earl frowned. Just from Whitebeard's aged body, he could tell that Whitebeard didn't have much time, but why did this guy appear here? Kalala, Redfield, looking at your image, it seems a little miserable. Whitebeard did not answer the Red Earl's question directly, but made fun of the Red Earl. Similarly, the appearance of Whitebeard also alerted the officials of the First Emperor pirates and others. Falling one after another, they fell not far away, very vigilant. Seeing the appearance of Perona and the others, the Red Earl's face became even more gloomy. Observation hockey radiated past, and the familiar atmosphere all disappeared, and all that was left were some small shrimps. His anger was soaring to the sky, and Earl Red looked at Hitsugaya Toshiro and the others with murderous intent, wishing he could directly divide the body into 5 horses. Redfield, it looks like your men are dead. Seeing the appearance of Perona and the others, Whitebeard laughed, and a trace of worry flashed in his eyes, which was a worry for Ace and the others in the future. Chapter 308 _ Shut up. The Red Earl turned around and roared fiercely at Whitebeard. Captain. After arriving behind Shin Luo, everyone's breath was a little tired, obviously too much consumption. After all, the Red Earl's side, except for some small shrimps, the rest of the powerful combat power has been completely wiped out. Although the Red Earl's power has been destroyed, this time, the First Emperor pirates also paid a certain price. You go back to the First Emperor pirates and support Nami and the others, I am here. Shin Luo's voice was very hoarse and commanded. Captain. Perona frowned, worried that Shin Luo was alone. This is an order, you should hurry back to the First Emperor pirates as soon as possible. Shin Luo shook his head. Boss, let's listen to the captain. Napoleon looked at the terrifying auras of Shin Luo, the Red Earl, and Whitebeard. Then, Captain, I'll wait for you to come back. Perona stared, and looked at the Red Earl fiercely, with demonic energy billowing. Shin Luo nodded. Let's go. Perona took a deep look at the Red Earl and Whitebeard, then turned around and walked in the direction of the First Emperor. 26 The current battle is no longer suitable for them here. The Red Earl's forces have almost been smashed, and now what is waiting is the final result. In fact, strictly speaking, in this war, the Red Earl had already lost, and the defeat was a mess, while the First Emperor pirates had a tragic victory. But now, a new surprise has also appeared, and that is Whitebeard, a monster that cannot be ignored. Stepping on the First Emperor, the First Emperor pirates and others looked at the sky worriedly, where 3 huge breaths almost burst the world. How could Whitebeard appear here? With gloomy eyes, Bej had an ominous premonition. Let's go. It's time for us to go back to. The First Emperor took the lead and started slowly. The remaining troops of the First Emperor pirates began to return. Crack, crack, boom. Covered by dark clouds, the sky is dark, and terrifying thunders are chopped down from time to time, giving people a sense of breathlessness. Surrounding, endless hurricanes, even more overturning the river, making people stand unsteady. Depressed, as if the sky had collapsed, and everything had been subverted, as if the end of the world was coming, even if it was thousands of miles away, the whole world watching this war was holding their breath. Now, in everyone's eyes, there is only the 3-legged figure. These 3 figures, like the pillars of the sky, press the sea to shake, and the world cannot move. These three figures can be said to represent the top power in the New World, but now, a world-shattering battle is about to happen. This battle, just thinking about it, is exciting. You must know that these three are the 5 emperors, the top hegemons in the world. Holy Land Mariajoy, Gorosei, 5 elders, and some Tenryubito, all looked at the picture in front of them, one by one, with a solemn expression, but there was a lightness in their eyes. Pirate civil war was the result that Gorosei, 5 elders wanted. They thought that this time it should be the battle between the first emperor and the Red Earl, but unexpectedly, an unexpected character named Whitebeard appeared. Even if only one of the 5 emperors died in this battle of emperors, it would be objective for the world government. The biggest loss might be the deaths of the 3 CPOs. Up to now, because of Qin Luo, the CPO has paid several times one after another, which has to make the world government a little difficult. The whole world, at this moment, is looking up. In the picture, the triangles hold each other, and every figure is so stalwart. Bare hands, this time Whitebeard did not bring his juvenile saber. Although he looked old, the aura emanating from his body suppressed Qin Luo and Earl Hong. This breath is not a factor of conqueror, but an objective and incomprehensible one. With the appearance of this man, now the center is no longer Qin Luo and Earl Hong, but this man, an old man. He looked tall, like a small giant, especially the 2 meniscus-shaped beards, combined with the sharp eyes of hockey, giving him a sense of heaviness that could not be ignored. He is the strongest man in the world, a man who uses his name to interpret an era. And the Red Earl, too, stood there like a big mountain, pressing the needles all around. This strange man is also a legend, even more terrifying, just because he can be young forever. His strength can always be maintained at the peak, and based on this alone, he is worthy of being the solitary Red Earl. Even, the world does not know how much the Red Earl was imprisoned in Impel Down, and how much losses he had caused Marine to suffer. Perhaps to the Red Earl, he is not as famous as Whitebeard, but to the older generation, his reputation is even more fierce than Whitebeard's. Just because, to arrest him alone, Marine dispatched the current World Marshal Kong, the current Marine Marshal Sengoku, the hero Garp, and Admiral Zephyr, and put him in Impel Down. Just from this, it can be seen that the Red counts strength. No matter whether the rumor is true or not, or the power of Garp, Sengoku, etc. was not in its heyday, but he alone can be on an equal footing with One Piece, King of Pirates, Whitebeard, Golden Lion. You can know that he a well-deserved reputation. As for Qin Luo, compared to these two, his qualifications are a bit shallow, and he even said that he is only a junior. However, this cannot be denied. Qin Luo's ability, after all, is better than the blue one everywhere. Not to mention, Qin Luo's reputation is not passed on in the air, but piled up with corpses and blood. Just by looking at it, many people think that Qin Luo is inferior to Whitebeard and Earl Red, but those who have interacted with Qin Luo know how terrifying Qin Luo is. At least, now Whitebeard and Earl Red are not underestimating. It was to put Qin Luo on an equal footing, and even a little jealous. Perhaps Qin Luo is inferior to Whitebeard in terms of qualifications, but there is one thing Qin Luo is far superior to Whitebeard, and that is youth. As for the Red Earl, that was a complete exception. If there is a division of power among the 5 emperors, then there is also a gap. There is no doubt that Whitebeard and Earl Red are the 5 emperors of the highest level, and Qin Luo is also the same. Even strictly speaking, the dead Bigmom and Kaido of the Beasts may only be at the upper middle level in the realm of the 5 emperors. And this division is also watery, and it can only be roughly distinguished. After all, there are many devil fruits that defy the sky. So combined, in each stage, the strength is high and bottom, and no one can be sure that the weak will be killed by the strong. After all, the strong who are killed by the weak are also unknown. Therefore, only power is the most real, and this premise is to live. Chapter 309 Silently, a crashing collision ripped apart the entire sky. The 3 breaths that looked down on all things in hockey's unparalleled aura also began to rise, like the glory of the sky, causing the surrounding ice surface to crack and turn into ice slag. Kalala. With the stalwart figure, Whitebeard opened his mouth and laughed, not feeling any discomfort due to the suppression of the air. And Chin Luo, with an expressionless face and cold eyes, looked down at Whitebeard and Earl Red with a downward gaze. This arrogance, whether it was self-confidence or conceit, was unknown. As for Earl Red, he sneered and looked at Whitebeard and Chin Luo with disdain. He was arrogant and did not lose to anyone. This is the king, even if it is an existence of the same level, it can be viewed with contempt, because in their eyes, they are the strongest. This is not conceit, but the confidence of a king. Wang, in the eyes of many people, he is gentle and kind, because he can protect one side and bring many people a stable life. Or, some kings, he loves his people very much and is very approachable, but these are all. Can't change a fact. Because the king is the most greedy, power, wealth, power, women, everything in the world, he wants to conquer, and he must control it in his own hands. Wang is also the most unreasonable. He is self-centered and does things according to his own preferences. Sometimes, he is approachable, and sometimes, he is cold and ruthless. In the same way, the king is also the most arrogant person, and cannot tolerate others' provocation, because in the eyes of the king, everything in the world should be trampled under his feet, or in other words, the king is the most ambitious. Just like a paradox, he may or may not have 7 emotions and 6 desires, but there is one thing that cannot be denied, that is, the king, born to be different. In the eyes of the world, Chin Luo, compared with Whitebeard and Earl Red, is a brutal executioner. These words are enough to explain the hatred and fear of Chin Luo. But they don't know how much blood is in the hands of the same Whitebeard and Red Earl. The king, the reason why he is a king, is because it is all built on corpses. If there are no corpses, the so-called king is a joke. What's more, it's this sick world. Order, humanity, and equality are all made by the strong, because the truth is all in the fist. Whoever has the bigger fist can make the rules he wants. This is the law of the weak. Boom, boom, diaresis. Flickering light and dark, the dark red thunder slashed down densely, reflecting Chin Luo's face. Standing on the ground, his figure was straight. Compared with the heights of Whitebeard and Earl Red, Chin Luo was undoubtedly small and pitiful, not even as tall as Whitebeard's calf. At first glance, Chin Luo felt weak. Can't help it, it will make people look down on it. However, it was this thin figure who fought against Whitebeard and the Red Earl, and even said that in some respects, it was even more unscrupulous. Whitebeard, do you want to meddle in my wars? The knife-cut face was as cold as frost. Chin Luo looked at Whitebeard with extreme sternness. Kalala Marineford, I promised you that I would fight you with all my strength. I'm running out of time, so today is just the right time, and this old guy is here, so let's go up together. Whitebeard laughed loudly, in a very happy mood, and glanced at the Red Earl. Newgate, are you senile dementia? The Red Earl's face sank, and the veins on his forehead jumped at Whitebeard's contempt. Even Chin Luo's face became colder and colder, because Whitebeard was so arrogant that he wanted to single out himself and Earl Red. Kalala, come on, the two of you. I'm serious. Whitebeard looked at the two of them, and lifted off his coat, revealing the scars from the era. This sentence, it's my turn to say, you two, let's go together. At this moment, Earl Red raised his head slightly, looking at everything. He even stretched out his finger and ticked at Whitebeard and Chin Luo. One is prouder than the other, and the other is more mad than the other. Ha, ha ha. However, at this depressed moment, Chin Luo smiled, so proudly. You two old people, are you qualified to let me Chin Luo join forces with others? Are you taking yourself too seriously? The laughter disappeared. Chin Luo ignored Whitebeard and Earl Red with a cold tone. Kulala, it's exactly what I want. Whitebeard squinted his eyes, looking very excited, while Red Earl, with his blood-red eyes open, revealed a killing intent. As soon as it was triggered, the thunder flashed down, and in the next instant, the entire ice field was bombed, and 3 figures, like meteors, collided together. Blue veins meandering, blood vessels protruding, 3 fists of different sizes, the shape of Zung Pin, collided together. At that moment, in the darkness, a storm spread violently, setting off the entire ice field, revealing the deep visible bottom of the deep sea. Diaresis PFF'd. Almost at the same time, there was blood hanging from the mouths of the 3 of them, and everyone seemed to have endured the strength of the 2 people, causing their blood to tumble, full of shocks. Especially Whitebeard's ability, the entire atmosphere in front of him was shattered, and the power of the mountain cracking was simply unbearable. However, this was just the beginning. Basically, as soon as the 3 of them got up, they used all their strength. Taking the lead, Earl Red launched an attack, kicked Chin Luo, and grabbed Whitebeard with his left hand. He even wanted to fight too and attacked both of them at the same time. Chin Luo and Whitebeard resisted Red Earl's attack one by one, and in between, they attacked each other. The big chaos, as soon as it came up, the mountains collapsed and the ground split, and the 3 of them fought their own way, and no one obeyed the other. The waves of air formed a hurricane, rolled up the sea, and connected the heaven and the earth one after another. With brilliant eyes, the 3 of them appeared on a deserted island. In just a moment, the island was shattered. Numerous sand and gravel mixed with big trees lifted the ground and drowned the surroundings. At the very center, the air waves were wild, and there was no life at all. The fists splashed, the flames swayed, and the air waves erupted. Cough, cough. The sky is separated, the island is completely shattered, and the sea is baked by the flames, and a white mist rises all over the sky. The huge sea vortex, constantly spinning, 3 figures, standing on one side. The situation is extremely embarrassing. What a troublesome ability. Whitebeard frowned, and the temperature was rolling around him, so he had to cover his body with armament, because the flames were too hot. Like a human-shaped flame, Chin Luo stood in midair, pointing his fingers at Whitebeard and the Red Earl at the same time. Now, it was his turn to be arrogant. Make up. Chapter 310 Boy, it's just a mere flame, what's so arrogant? The Red Earl couldn't see it and dismissed it. Kulala, you guys be careful. However, the land collapsed, and Whitebeard's fists were covered with a huge white air pressure mask, and at the same time, he slammed down on Chin Luo and Earl Hong. His face changed. Whether it was Chin Luo or Earl Hong, he was dignified at the moment. Crack, knock. The whole piece of the atmosphere was cracked, and Chin Luo only felt that there was a force of heaven and earth in front of him. That kind of force was like a continent slamming over, causing his scalp to explode. Buzz, buzz. The burning flame, 9 rounds of light, like eternal colors, blasted towards Whitebeard, followed by Chin Luo's hands, a stronger beam of flame, forming a torrent and tearing out. The invisible force collided with the 10 beams. Chin Luo's hair stood on end, and the figure couldn't help but take a step back, but this step made Chin Luo instantly furious. The flames became more flaming, and the beam of light expanded. Chin Luo took a step forward, followed by the second step, and slowly pushed it horizontally until the power of the sky collapse was offset. Compared with Chin Luo's frontal resistance, the Red Earl chose to avoid it, but he was also injured. Chin Luo's upper body was naked. The wound left by Earl Red had dried up, but now, a new injury appeared. 2 old things, I have no time to spend with you. Since you are courting death, I will fulfill you. With a grim face, Chin Luo stretched out his hand, as if grabbing something, and slammed it down in front of him. For Chin Luo's attack, Whitebeard and Earl Red did not underestimate, and even became vigilant at the first moment. However, nothing happened. Hurricane passed by, leaving Whitebeard and the Red Earl in a mess. The whole world was stunned at this moment, thinking that the first emperor had some big move, but now, they are all stupid. However, this situation only lasted for a few seconds, and then, some people seemed to think of something, with a look of fear. Similarly, Whitebeard also woke up, and in his eyes, he was more cautious than ever. Wow! Surrounded by flames, a cry, tearing the eardrums, and reigning over the world, vast and domineering. Lifting up into the sky, a mysterious blazing feathered flame phoenix vermilion sparrow, divinely beautiful and huge, a vortex of light spots began to appear in front of its beak, and a terrifying energy slowly began to appear. Dead bat, don't die. Looking up, looking at the sky-falling scenery, Whitebeard Vivi turned sideways, his right arm swelled, and the veins throbbed rapidly. HMPH, just relying on him as the first emperor. For Whitebeard's warning, the Red Earl looked disdainful, but deep in his eyes, he revealed heaviness. Boom. There was no sky, as if the entire sky was torn apart, a vast torrent exuding monstrous destruction, towards Whitebeard and the Red Earl, submerging the past. Before the incineration temperature came, the ground had already begun to melt, and there was even a cutoff in the sea. The sky is falling. All his strength, Whitebeard condensed his ability and slammed on the atmosphere in front of him, cracking layer by layer, like a volcanic eruption, which continued. And Earl Red wanted to rely on speed to avoid, but the torrent was too big, and there was nothing he could do about it. His bones and wings stretched behind him, and his right fist condensed strange power, and slammed into the oncoming torrent. Bow, wave. It was as if countless rubble were knocked on the glass, so bright that I couldn't open my eyes. The sea burned, revealing a piece of land, a flaming phoenix vermilion bird, as if destroying the world, destroying everything. Countless mountains stretched up and then merged together. Under great pressure, Whitebeard and the Red Earl seemed to have a protective shield in front of them, causing a golden-white torrent to flow to both sides. This power. The Red Earl's face is ugly, and the bones and wings behind him have closed himself. On the outside, a layer of blood, CGAC, red energy shield protects him. He can clearly perceive that his physical strength, armament, and ability blood are quickly disappearing. All around, there is already a sea of fire, as if in the sun, all the time, not being baked. Compared to the ease with which the Red Earl was, Whitebeard was a little bit harder to resist. After all, Whitebeard's physical condition was really bad, not to mention, such a high-intensity mobilization ability. Naked eye that in front of Whitebeard, the atmosphere formed a cobweb crack, and the impact like a Tianhe could never break through this line of defense. This kid, finally used all his strength. Blood from his mouth, Whitebeard felt his body whimper. If he was young, he would be so defensive. The outside world has long been stunned, each life, with pale faces, looking at the disaster-like power, all fear in their hearts. This kind of power, he has become stronger again. People who have dealt with Qin Luo, all over the world at this moment, feel a pressure. However, Qin Luo's power is far from that. Boom, boom. The gushing continued for 10 minutes, and the huge golden-white torrent disappeared. Slowly landed, suspended above the magma, Qin Luo's body swayed a little, and his face was slightly pale. And in front of him, as far as the eye can see, it is all a sea of fire, and under the feet, countless magma billows. This is simply in the sea, a hole is torn open, forming a large land. Everything evaporated, but thousands of miles away, the blocked sea began to return. In all directions, the turbulent waves that could not be seen at a glance opened their bloody mouths and devoured them towards the very center. The sea is angry, the earth is trembling. Boom. Suddenly, the lava rolling in the distance, a dark figure, slowly stood up. Cough, cough. He opened his mouth and vomited blood, and the blood-colored light flashed. The Red Earl with only one bone wing, exuding heat, staggered and began to levitate. Staring at him, Qin Luo thought he could kill 2 people in one fell swoop, but it seemed that he underestimated these 2 old guys. Whitebeard also stood up in another magma field, but the situation was a bit miserable, because the most striking crescent Moonbeard had disappeared. Boy, it's Lao Su who underestimated you. Earl Red couldn't stop vomiting blood, and stared at Qin Luo, word by word. Kalala enough taste. Laughing wildly, Whitebeard flushed red, but before he could finish laughing, his face suddenly froze, and he fell to one knee directly on the ground. The body is already in collapse. However, as long as he is not dead, he can fight, and in an instant, the bent body begins to stand tall and straight. Chapter 311 _ Kill. At the same moment, without words, the three of them collided again, but this time, the three of them consumed too much and all their physical fitness dropped a lot, but even so, the battle was like a landslide. The two fists added together, Qin-Luo's arm smashed directly on his head, and at the same time, Whitebeard kicked out and slammed into Qin-Luo. With an explosion, Qin-Luo's face turned white again, and he fell directly. Flying out, because it blocked Whitebeard, but did not block the Red Earl. This situation happened in a flash. Sometimes, Qin-Luo and the Red Earl attacked Whitebeard together, or they attacked the Red Earl with Whitebeard. The three of them went their separate ways. Whenever there was a chance, they would not hesitate to shoot. And bloodstains were clearly visible on the body. And just when the three of them were white-hot, the sky, the waves of the sky and the earth, swept in from all directions, and drowned the path towards the three of them. The complexion changed greatly, the three of them hit the bomb, directly opened the distance, and then lifted into the air. Under the natural disaster, the power of the three people is so small, not to mention, they are all capable of Whitebeard and Earl Red. He knew that if the two of them were allowed to leave, the battle would not end in a short period of time. Already at war, so can't wait any longer. Stopping two is simply unrealistic, so if you retreat, you can only stop one. For this reason, Qin-Luo directly set his sights on Earl Red, because compared to Whitebeard, Earl Red was even more terrifying. Even if Whitebeard was left alone, he would not be able to live for long, but Earl Red was different. As long as he was given blood, he could be reborn. If he didn't kill him this time, then the first Emperor pirates would always be in danger in the future. After making a decision and disappearing in an instant, Qin-Luo sullenly faced the countless waves that covered the sky that were getting closer and closer, and shot the Red Earl. "Boy, you're crazy." Being dragged by Qin-Luo, Earl Red panicked, because the waves close at hand had already covered the top of his head, and the gap was getting smaller and smaller. "Leave me alone." Grabbing Earl Red's feet, Qin-Luo yanked down, and then launched a frantic attack. "You lunatic, you want to die together." Count Red turned pale, and forced Qin-Luo back with one kick, trying to escape, but how could Qin-Luo let it go so easily? "HMPH, it's not certain who will die." Qin-Luo sneered, looking at Earl Red sarcastically as if he were dead. Looking up, the exit has slowly closed, just like making dumplings, the sea has drowned Qin-Luo and Earl Hong. This scene, the whole world is noisy. It is unbelievable that the first emperor actually dragged the Red Earl madly and perished together. Mad, the first emperor is a lunatic. Looking at the scene of overturning the river and the sea, all over the world, the expressions are different, all of which are unimaginable expressions. This sudden result is really too sudden. Some people have thought of a lot of results, but they did not expect such a result. The sky has changed, and it is conceivable that if this news spreads, there will be a lot of riots on the sea. Some people knew that the first emperor was very cruel, but they didn't expect it to be so cruel. Even in the eyes of some people, the first emperor was an idiot, or a neurotic with an abnormal head. This practice is not what an idiot is. Whitebeard, who escaped from birth, couldn't believe it when he looked at the turbulent sea of Pengbai under his feet. The turbulent, rolling waves, flapping and roaring, echoed in the entire land of gunpowder. Things, unexpected, even Whitebeard, at the moment is mixed. But no one knew that there was an unimaginable scene in the surging sea. Wow! In the dark sea, the pressure was doubled, and the surrounding area seemed to be squeezed. At the beginning, even Qin-Luo was slapped by the waves and vomited blood. However, he took it off. Gu dong, ku dong. It was a little dark and drifted with the flow. The Red Earl vomited blood and struggled, but his weakness made him more and more desperate. The surrounding area was dyed red with blood, and Earl Red could feel that he was sinking. The sea is swallowing him. The water swayed, and a figure approached quickly. When he got a closer look, Earl Red opened his mouth, as if suffocating, and his face flushed because he couldn't believe what he saw. Poochie. Like fireflies in the dark, with a radius of several meters, they are illuminated. Ji Dong. Ji Dong. With bulging eyes, Earl Red struggled, his face full of fantasy. Why, he can still use his abilities, why, he still has strength, why, he is not afraid of seawater. Endless questions filled Earl Red's mind, because he was so close, the man was looking at him with contempt. The Red Earl wanted to open his mouth to speak, but, except for suffocation, he felt nothing. At this moment, the Red Earl was like a lamb to be slaughtered, losing his resistance. Goodbye, old thing. Opening his mouth, silent words emerged from Qin Luo's mouth. Why aren't you afraid of the sea? Being pinched by Qin Luo's neck, Earl Red stared at Kui Hong's eyes, staring at Qin Luo, with unwillingness, anger, and despair in those eyes. Go to hell and ask the devil. With his right hand pinching Earl Red's neck, Qin Luo's left hand appeared with a sharp flaming blade, making the surrounding sea sizzle, but even so, the flame did not go out. Damn! Opening his mouth, countless sea water poured back, and the Red Earl's face was full of hideous colors. PFF'd. A slight voice sounded, the blood stained red, and Earl Red's body was separated, and Qin Luo chopped off his head. Ellipsis 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 ellipsis. Gradually sinking, a headless corpse slowly disappeared in the dark deep sea, and the hideous head was held by Qin Luo with one hand. Looking at the corpse slowly disappearing under his feet, Qin Luo lifted Earl Red's head, raised his head, looked at the sea, and then the flames sprayed from the bottom of his feet, like a torpedo, quickly disappearing into the deep sea. At this time, on the sea, Whitebeard was about to leave, but just as he turned around, the sea under his feet rioted, and a terrifying aura rose up. Boom! Crash la la! The sea of the sky was lifted up, and a figure appeared in the air. At this moment, the whole world was silent, with their mouths wide open, their eyes raised, and they stared blankly at the wet man with a human head in his hand. Even Whitebeard had an incredible look on his face at the moment. Looking at the man in front of him, looking at his dead head in his hands, Whitebeard opened his mouth, but he couldn't say what he wanted to say. Raising his hand and looking at the bleeding head in his hand, Qin Luo dismissed it and threw it directly at Whitebeard. The contempt in it was all too clear. You are not afraid of the sea. Breathing a little heavy, Whitebeard ignored Count Red's head, and instead stared at Qin Luo with twinkling eyes, remembering what Roger once said to him. As for Whitebeard's question, Qin Luo just frowned and looked at the sky, then raised his brows, facing Whitebeard with a smile. Whitebeard, in fact, from the beginning, I didn't want to be your enemy, but, I'm in the way, so you must step back, but I know that with your character, you would rather die in battle than retreat, so I will fulfill you today. 2. Chapter 312 Kalala, aren't you afraid that I will drag you to the funeral? Or, do you think I don't have that ability? Whitebeard paused for a moment at Qin Luo's brash words, and then laughed. Whether you have that ability or not, it doesn't matter to me anymore, because it's too late. As Qin Luo's words fell, the distant sky suddenly shone brightly, like a round of panic, piercing through the space, burning everything, and descending. And Whitebeard, looking up at the light that turned half of the sky red, couldn't help but smile bitterly. Sure enough, the action that didn't happen before was not that simple. Lifting up into the sky, Qin Luo stretched out his hand and held it high, as if holding a sun, exuding endless rays of light, stepping on everything. The surrounding sea has begun to evaporate. Whitebeard, in another in the world, you have countless fans, but it seems that there is no room for reconciliation between us, you are a respectable opponent. Bye. After speaking, without hesitation, Qin Luo gave Whitebeard the sun that he had prepared for a long time. In an instant, the sky exploded, boundless and world-destroying, the dazzling sun fell. Facing the boundless sun, Whitebeard is like a grain of rice, so small. Whitebeard stared at Qin Luo, even if his eyes were blinded by the light, he still stared at Qin Luo. Because Whitebeard's heart was already surging. What Roger said was true, there really was another world. The sun fell, endless brilliance, filled with a terrifying force field, destroying everything, but for some reason, Whitebeard did not resist. Instead he watched the sun fall, and even a careful observation would find that Whitebeard's face, there is also liberation. No. However, at this moment, in the distant sky, a firelight and a blue divine bird rushed through the speed of sound, accompanied by a heart-piercing roar. Silently, the sea seemed to have broken a hole, and the sun slowly began to swallow the sea and sink. Overturned rivers and seas, storms and thunderstorms, everything fell into chaos, and the violent air pressure ripped apart everything, stirred the wind and clouds, and exploded. The endless halo radiated, and then the waves of 10,000 meters high turned upside down and destroyed in all directions. Countless surrounding islands were completely submerged and turned into dust. Standing in the deep space, Chinluo Vivi frowned, aware of the two breaths coming from the sky, and snorted coldly. Chinluo turned into a streamer and disappeared into the sky. This time, it was Chinluo who was able to kill Earl Red so easily, and Whitebeard did not resist in the end. Strictly speaking, this time Chinluo had the right place and the right people. Otherwise, the result would be unpredictable. The situation was messy, the whole sea was dry and evaporated, and the dark and boundless hole was like a black hole, and it could not be seen to the end. The fiery energy is still spreading, and at the very center, it has completely turned into a place of magma. Looking up from the heights, it was as if the sea had been cut off. A pitch-black meteorite crater forcibly separated the sea, leaving a pitch-black abyss, which caused the surrounding seawater to remain uninterrupted for a long time. The astonishing temperature that remains, when it gets close, can make ordinary people personified. It is conceivable how huge the aftermath is. Whoosh, whoosh. And just as the aftermath continued to swept away, the sky, two streamers, hovered over the sky in the blink of an eye. Dad, the liver and gallbladder were split, the flames disappeared, revealing the strong body. I saw Ace, looking at the devastating abyss in front of him in a panic, feeling that it was difficult to breathe. Beside him, Marco clenched his fists tightly, gritted his teeth, and his eyes turned even red. I don't believe that Papa will die, Papa is the strongest. With a roar, standing on the edge of the Tianqing, the temperature of the surrounding burning did not bring any discomfort to Ace at all. Calm down, calm down, calm down. Looking at the dilapidated scene around him, Ace forced himself to calm down, then closed his eyes, emptied his mind, and listened to everything, spreading out like invisible tentacles. It hurts, it hurts. Under his feet, there were painful voices, endless, and Ace could clearly feel that the earth was crying. Burn, burn. On the contrary, the cry of the earth, surrounded by slightly violent voices, seemed very active, and these were all residual flames. Very innocent, very pure, there is no pollution at all, with Ace as the center, all living beings seem to be breathing, and even in Ace's perception, they are alive. Searching hard, Ace wanted to find the familiar aura, but after 10 minutes and half an hour, Ace's face became abnormally pale, and beads of sweat the size of beans ran across his cheeks. Ace, wake up, you can't consume your mind like this. Beside him, Marco looked at Ace's pale face, and directly interrupted Ace forcibly, because listening to the voice of all things, Ace was just mastering it. This kind of skill is extremely exhausting. To trauma, irreparable. Marco, I can't find it, I can't find Daddy. With sweat all over his head, Ace panicked and grabbed Marco's hands with red eyes, grief-stricken. Ace, Daddy may be dead. Taking a deep breath, Marco closed his eyes and forcibly took back the tears that were about to fall from his eyes. How can Dad lose, how can he die? Holding his head in his hands, Ace squatted on the ground, wailing like a helpless child. How important Whitebeard was to Ace. For him, Whitebeard was his father, who gave him everything and was the first relative who affirmed that he should exist. Ace has always regarded Whitebeard as a direction and even a goal in life, but his willfulness again and again has nothing but trouble with his father. But even so, he is like a father, like a pro. Comfort yourself, love yourself, teach yourself. I blame myself for being too weak, too weak. Kneeling on the ground, Ace slammed his forehead to the ground again and again, roaring with tears streaming down his face. Pain, anger, regret, and various emotions filled Ace's heart. This feeling suffocated him and made him at a loss. First Emperor, I must kill him, kill him. Holding the soil tightly with both hands, Ace's face was grim. At this moment, in his heart, there was only revenge, revenge for his father. Boom! He rose from the ground, the flames soared into the sky, Ace's face was full of hatred, and the tears in his eyes were full of hatred. Ace, don't be impulsive. Marco's face changed greatly, and he took off into the sky. He had to stop Ace's stupid moves. Chapter 313 With the disappearance of Ace and Marco, it started slowly, the separated sea began to return, and the endless seawater began to pour back, as if it would never end. At the same time, the situation here shocked the whole world. What did they see? The first emperor dragged Earl Red to the bottom of the sea, but it didn't take long before the first emperor rushed out of the sea, carried Earl Red's head, and then created a solar meteorite, which turned Whitebeard into fly ash in one fell swoop. Hey, what did I see? Am I blinded? Yes, I must be blind. All over the world, everyone watching the battle was stunned and couldn't believe it. Who can tell me why the first emperor can kill the Red Earl in the sea? And he also flew away from the sea. Those with devil fruit ability, with a crazy face, grabbed the people around them and shook them. Even the strongest man ever fell into the sun. The first emperor, too strong, no one can surpass it. Bigmom, Kaido of the Beasts, Lonely 26 Gao Zihong, Whitebeard, all 4 and 5 emperors, all were killed by him. One Piece King of Pirates, only One Piece King of Pirates can do. The first emperor is One Piece King of Pirates, One Piece King of Pirates. Fart, it's just killing a few 5 emperors, I don't admit that he is One Piece King of Pirates. There was a proud pirate who heard the comments from all around, with a look of disdain. However, his struggle is powerless, because among some civilians, or among the weak pirates, his first emperor is One Piece King of Pirates, the well-deserved One Piece King of Pirates. This kind of discussion spreads all over the world. Some people admit that the first emperor is One Piece King of Pirates, and some people do not admit it. In short, there are countless reasons. Opponents believe that the first emperor did not reach the final island, nor did he get the treasure of One Piece King of Pirates Gol D. Roger, so he did not admit it. But those who support him take Chin Luo's record and put it on the bright side. For a time, various camps began to diverge. It is conceivable that after this incident, if Chin Luo is still alive, how many fanatics and submissives will be poured into the first emperor pirates? Of course, this kind of discussion is not very obvious, but with the passage of time, I believe that it will not be long before this kind of discussion will really be put on the table. At the same time, in various places, some hidden powerhouses all had different expressions and pondered. The only thing that can be known is that the new world will be reshuffled, and the first emperor pirates are already soaring into the sky, and it is difficult to resist. Harold Shanks is left in the 5 emperors. Relying on the footsteps of the first emperor pirates, it is only a matter of time to find the final island. The throne of King of Pirates, the nearest man. To become One Piece King of Pirates is already there. Now the first emperor lacks only a key. As long as this key is found, the throne of the king will be completely opened. However, all this is far from over. Perhaps in the eyes of the world, One Piece King of Pirates is the highest position. However, for Chin Luo, this is just a transition, because his goal is not One Piece King of Pirates, but the king of the world, the true king. Chin Luo once thought that if the world can't change him, then he will change the world, because only by destruction can there be rebirth. In order to make the people he cares about live a safe, happy life, Chin Luo, he doesn't mind destroying the whole world, and then rebuilding a world of his dreams. On this road, anyone who tries to resist will be obliterated by Qin Luo's unscrupulous means and inhumanity, even if the life of this world is on the verge of extinction. Time, back to 2 days ago. The mainland of the First Emperor Pirates, the edge of the land, the coastline, and countless floating islands, such as the stars in the sky, are arranged in rows, but now, there is a depressing atmosphere here, just because the vast army of the First Emperor Pirates has been resisted here. How long? Standing proudly, the military fortresses lie down in the dark, all kinds of artillery, sticking out their fangs. It has entered our waters, and the marine will arrive in about an hour. Taking off the binoculars, the sea was calm, and Nami swept the hair in front of her to her ears and smiled indifferently. Chirolo, hope Marine can resist these darlings of mine. Then, can I not go? Carefully, shrinking his head, Shirahoshi stared at Nami, as if he was about to cry, full of grievances. What do you say? Seeing Shirahoshi's timidity, Nami stared angrily. Oh, with his head down and his mouth pouted, Shirahoshi felt aggrieved. Shirahoshi, your ability is very important, maybe you can wipe out the Marines, come on. Compared to Nami's displeasure, Kaya on the side comforted her and patted Shirahoshi's fishtail. Because everyone has already learned from Qin Luo's mouth that Shirahoshi is the king of the sea. But I don't want them to be killed. Tears rolled, Shirahoshi's face was full of disappointment. This is the master's order, you cannot do it, but you can think about the consequences for yourself, and you don't want this timid expression, it really makes me angry. Nami, are you intimidating Shirahoshi? Kaya rolled her eyes. Humph. Nami put her hands on her shoulders and turned her face to one side. After the First Emperor Pirates brought Fishman Island into their territory, she also pulled Shirahoshi into the First Emperor Pirates, but regardless of their use what means, just they didn't change Shirahoshi's timid character, so now, they are almost giving up. Shirahoshi, are you ready? At this time, Kaya comforted, looking at Shirahoshi. I see. Very aggrieved, Shirahoshi nodded. Zeus. Master, I am here. Very attentive, Zeus suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Follow her and go. Nami pointed to Shirahoshi, then surrounded by thunder, disappeared directly in place. Shirahoshi, hurry up, the master is gone. Zeus's body instantly grew bigger, urging Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi, you are the princess of Fishman Island and a member of the First Emperor Pirates. Now Fishman Island is prosperous and peaceful under the protection of the First Emperor Pirates. You must be brave for Fishman Island, just like your father, mother, brother, I believe in you. Kaya said softly, encouragingly looking at Shirahoshi with a solemn expression. Sister Kaya, Shirahoshi pursed his lips, mist swirling in his eyes. Shirahoshi, you are the bravest. I will try my best. Sniffing, Shirahoshi bit his lip and said firmly. Shirahoshi, come on. Looking at Shirahoshi, who was being held by Zesto, and gradually moved away from sight, everyone waved their hands. Chapter 314 The sun was light and the sea was undulating. On the distant sea, huge warships, riding the wind and waves, slowly went in the direction of the First Emperor Pirates. Report, we have entered the waters of the First Emperor Pirates. At the very center, on an Admiral-class warship, an observer's voice sounded. This time, Marine can be said to have made a lot of money, and is several times stronger than Buster Call. On each warship, either Vice Admiral or Rear Admiral, especially the three figures on the central warship, are very eye-catching and shocking. The strangest thing is that these warships were somewhat damaged, as if they had experienced a small-scale battle before entering the waters of the First Emperor Pirates. I didn't expect that lunatic would have foreign aid. It's a little different from him. On the deck, Kizaru was lying on a chair, with Erlang's legs crossed, drinking a drink, his face a little surprised. Him, Kuzan and Ryokugyu, Admiral recruited from the New World, have different expressions. This time, even the leader of the Revolutionary Army, Monkey D. Long, took action. It seems that our action has long been noticed. Ryokugyu frowned, looked at the sea, and said solemnly, I don't know if Garp Vice Admiral can take down the most vicious criminal in this world. It turned out that just a few hours ago, just after they left, they were informed that the Revolutionary Army had invaded the Marine headquarters. Therefore, as a last resort, Sengoku asked Garp to come back to help, so that now, the crusade against the First Emperor pirates is only the three of them. Admiral led the team. Sailing slowly, riding the wind and waves, Kizaru and the others have no sense of tension at all, because according to the investigation, the First Emperor pirates only left Nami, the god of thunder, and Fujitora, the blind swordsman, and others should not be afraid. With the three of them, he can completely suppress it. What's more, there are more than a dozen vice admiral, as well as countless rear admiral and marine, to take down the First Emperor pirates. It is only a matter of time. For this reason, even Garp's departure did not cause any psychological burden to Marine. However, unknowingly, after stepping into the sea area of the First Emperor pirates, the originally clear sky began to slowly become gloomy, and the black clouds also closed up to cover the sky. Unusual sea breeze swayed. I may not have noticed it at first, but as the warship went deeper, the sky became more violent, and now, a suppressed breath began to silently invade the entire marine fleet. Something's wrong, Diaresis. Standing up from his chair, Ryokugyu frowned, his body instinctively telling him that there was danger ahead. Although the weather in the New World is messy, it shouldn't be like this. Kizaru raised his head, looked at the thunder, and the black clouds could no longer be seen, and a throbbing flashed in his heart. It seems they were the first to do it. At this time, Kuzan had a serious face, looked up at the abnormal natural scenery, and spoke very heavily. Thor Nami. At this moment, even a fool can perceive this strange feeling. It seems that our trouble is coming. Around, lined up, on each warship, stood a vice admiral or rear admiral, who had already guessed a possibility. Crack, crack. Electric light flint, a blue thunder flashed, and above the sea, a man shone with divine might appeared. Looking down and looking at the huge warship that had stopped, Nami's mouth showed a grin. I have a bad feeling. Beside the main ship, Onagumo lit a cigarette and his heart skipped a beat. However, the shock of waiting was not over, because next to Nami, the space was torn apart suddenly, and one foot stepped out. Seeing the appearance of this man, everyone's eyes jumped. Nami. The fluorescent light between her hands disappeared, Nami's face was cold, and she looked at the warship under her feet with killing intent in her eyes. Whoosh, whoosh. Immediately after that, Zesto looked at Shirahoshi and also appeared in Marine's eyes, but compared to Nami's shock, Shirahoshi's appearance made Marines stunned, and their eyes were extremely strange. A cloud holding a fish. In this oppressive atmosphere, it seems very dazzling. Nami-sama. Still a little timid, Shirahoshi lay on Zeus' body, looked weakly at Marine under his feet, and shrank his neck. Don't be afraid, I'll watch over you, think of Fishman Island. Although Nami's face was cold, her tone softened a little, and she directly lifted Shirahoshi from Zeus's body and placed it beside her. Yeah, with an exclamation, Shirahoshi shivered all over, lowered his head, and mist was already overflowing from his eyes. Nami-sama, I will try my best. Up his courage, looking at the countless warships on the sea, Shirahoshi recalled Fishman Island in his mind, and his beating heart began to calm down. Are you ready? Shirahoshi, who opened her eyes again, Nami asked. Nami-sama, I'm ready. With his hands clenched, Shirahoshi gritted his teeth, looking at Marine below, a trace of unbearable flashed in his eyes. Then do it. Carrying Shirahoshi, Nami-Vivi stepped forward and directly exposed Shirahoshi to the front. Marine below was stunned by Nami's strange movements. However, Kizaru and the others, who were in the lead, all frowned, because all of this was a little abnormal. It stands to reason that Fujitora and Nami should have shot, but looking at this, they would let a fish shoot first. It made them a little confused. Diaresis, do it. This abnormal phenomenon made Kizaru and others have a bad premonition, so they chose to strike first. The golden light flashed and boarded the sky. Kizaru and Ryokugyu rushed directly to Nami and others, leaving only Kuzan on the warship, just in case. Seeing Kizaru and Ryokugyu rushing in, Shirahoshi subconsciously wanted to back off. If you don't take action, your father, your brother, and Fishman Island will all be destroyed. If so, you can continue to be cowardly. Feeling the trembling on Shirahoshi's body, Nami was impersonal and directly threatened by the deep cold. Because this time, it's just to train Shirahoshi, otherwise you're letting it go to waste, so what's the point? I don't want everyone to leave me, I want to protect Fishman Island. Hearing Nami's demonic Zhao whispers, Shirahoshi's eyes were full of tears, and he was actually scared to cry, and as the tears fell, a will that made the world pale, tilted overwhelmingly. Om! The sky and the earth exploded, as if it collapsed, and the endless coercion radiated in all directions. At this moment, the whole world stopped. Standing behind Shirahoshi, Fujitora tensed all over, almost instinctively, because a strong heart palpitation was choking him, making him uncontrollable. Even Nami's face was moved. Just standing behind Shirahoshi made Fujitora and Nami's scalp hairy, not to mention Kizaru and Ryokugyu who had hard steel on the front. Golden light disappeared, revealing Kizaru's body. At this moment, his face was pale, his eyes were staring, and he looked at Shirahoshi with some moving expression. Like the king of all things, Kizaru can clearly feel the sense of threat. At this moment, the whole scene was silent, and everyone looked at the crying mermaid and felt a fantasy. Chapter 315 Is this a conqueror? Teeth chattering, there is Rear Admiral, swallowing saliva, his face is pale, behind, some weak-willed marines, whose eyes have been broken, collapsed on the deck. What the hell is going on? Standing on the bow, Onigumo looked at the will that was constantly radiating from the mermaid, and felt that there was a giant beast in his mind, roaring and wanting to surrender himself. Unconsciously, they landed on the deck. Kizaru and Ryokugyu looked solemn, their eyes twinkling with doubt and disbelief. Why does the first Emperor Pirates have a third conqueror owner, and this conqueror is even stronger than the 5 emperors? There was a drop of cold sweat on Kizaru's forehead, because this conqueror is too strong, even compared to that bastard, it's not much different. Compared to Kizaru's dignifiedness, Ryokugyu was a little heavier, because he felt more pressure than Kizaru, just because he was the one who ate own fruit. If they feel it carefully, they will find that the will issued by Shirahoshi is very different from that of Conqueror. We're in trouble, Kuzan said a rare word, his face a little sad. What do you know? Kizaru and Ryokugyu knew, this guy, had after being captured for a period of time, he must know what secrets the first Emperor Pirates are hiding, such as now. Let's retreat. Otherwise, we won't be able to leave in a while. Instead of explaining, Kuzan exhorted. Kuzan, you know, you're Marine Admiral now. Ryokugyu's eyes fluctuated slightly and reminded. I want to leave now, but it's too late. Suddenly, Kuzan's face changed greatly, and the picture he was worried about finally appeared. Boom, boom. There is no end, the main piece of the sea turned up the monstrous waves, and all kinds of behemoths covering the line of sight broke through the sea. At this moment, all the marines were all soft, almost sitting on the ground, their faces terrified. Overturning the river and overturning the sea, a behemoth whose head could not be seen, roared up to the sky, occupying the entire sea area. At this moment, the marines, like a leaf in the sea, were surrounded by endless monsters. All the marines, with their mouths open, looked at this scene with fear, even Kizaru and Ryokugyu had their eyes bulging and their throats trembled. What's the situation? In the end what happened? CGAC. Why, they are surrounded by sea kings. At a glance, there are countless small sea kings, medium sea kings, and even large sea kings, and they are completely surrounded by water. That ferocious aura directly pressed them, unable to breathe. Have we entered the windless belt? There was Rear Admiral, his face was bloodless, he almost collapsed to the ground, looking at the surrounding scene in horror. The wind is so strong, how could it be a windless belt? He kept swallowing, no matter if it was Rear Admiral or Vice Admiral, he felt cold all over his body, and his hair was horrified. Phew. Huge. Compared with the confusion of the bottom marine, Ryokugyu, as Admiral and others, no matter how stupid he is, he knows how all this is caused, even if it is just a guess. Make their hearts skip a beat. Sea King, it must be Sea King, you already know it, right? Livid face, Kizaru grabbed Kuzan's collar and roared. Kuzan Admiral, I hope you can give us a satisfactory explanation after this incident. The endless gray aura began to appear, Ryokugyu's eyes were cold, and he even wondered if Kuzan had betrayed. He knew that the first Emperor pirates suspected that they had the Sea King, but he didn't tell them, so now, so many Marines, being directly besieged here, even breaking through is an extravagant hope. I'm just guessing too. In addition to a wry smile, Kuzan still smiles bitterly. The endless behemoths densely surrounded Marine. At this moment, Marine was like a girl who had been stripped of her clothes. Hoo. It resounded through the sky, swarmed up, and the endless waves set off the warships, like a tiger entering a flock, but in an instant, countless warships were smashed into pieces and disappeared on the sea. There are even more Sea Kings, which directly swallowed the warship and sank to the bottom of the sea. Bastard, what are you waiting for? Kizaru's fingertips turned red, and countless beams penetrated, causing the surrounding Sea Kings to have holes in their bodies, and in a moment, the entire sea area was dyed red. At this moment, Kizaru was subconsciously alert to Kuzan, turned back, and roared. Helpless, Kuzan retracted his mind and jumped off the warship directly. The ice on his right hand spread, and in an instant, the riotous sea area froze and turned into a plain. Moreover, the covered sea surface is still rushing towards the distant horizon, and it has even reached the edge of the first Emperor pirates. And at the center, those surging Sea Kings directly turned into ice sculptures, lifelike. However, in this short moment, their losses are incalculable. Moreover, this is only the surface, because in the depths of the sea, slowly starting, ahead of large-scale Sea Kings far beyond medium-sized, opened their blood-red eyes and looked at the sea. Zeus. Looking at the frozen sea and Nami in the sky, the corners of her mouth curved. Yes, boss. Very excited, Zeus turned into a black cloud, and his whole body rose with thunder, and he flew directly to the sky that covered the sky. Seeing Zeus disappearing into the clouds, Nami lowered her head, looked at Kizaru and the others below with a sly smile, and stretched her right hand to the sky. Snack, _. With the deafening roar, Nami's whole body began to entangle with terrifying thunder, causing the surrounding atmosphere to burst into waves of heat. You bastards, enjoy the punishment of God. Wanlei world destruction catastrophe. The entire sky suddenly brightened, endlessly, and at a glance, it was full of blue light, roaring constantly. Not good. Looking at the sky that seemed to collapse in the boundless sea of thunder, whether it was Kizaru, Ryokugyu, or other Marines, their faces were pale and full of heart palpitations. Boom. A thundering beam of light, boundless and boundless, fell straight down, and the entire frozen ice surface shattered and turned into liquid. Immediately following, one after another, densely packed and indiscriminately falling, the entire frozen sea surface turned upside down and turned into a sea of thunder. Some comatose Marines gasified directly, while some Marines even used iron blocks to resist, and they screamed and turned into Kurozumi. Help me. Ah, run away, run away. It was completely one-sided, and it was a disaster. Except for a few Rear Admiral and Vice Admiral, the other Marines were directly smashed into the boundless thunder column. Chapter 316 Damn. Kizaru raised his head and rushed straight into the air, trying to interrupt Nami's movements, because if this continued, it wouldn't take 3 minutes, and the marine elite they brought might be wiped out here today. Seeing Kizaru flashing, Nami directly withdrew her hand, full of drama, turned into an electron, and appeared in front of Kizaru like a traverse. Wretched monkey, you look really ugly. Foot horizontally, screaming in the air, Kizaru's eyes jumped, and he also pulled out his foot, colliding with Nami heavily. Huge power continued, Kizaru's face was moved, his figure turned into a photon, and disappeared 10 meters away, while Nami, without pain or itching, looked at Kizaru with disdain. Away the distance, Kizaru frowned as he looked at the continuous thunder. Retreat, retreat. In the endless sea of thunder, Ryokugyu directly issued an order to retreat. In just a few minutes, they suffered heavy losses. If this goes on, they can't bear it. However, the endless thunder was like rain, evaporating everything, and even if it was retreating, Marine was always mourning. Incomparable hatred, Kizaru looked at Nami's face in an embarrassing look, gritted his teeth, and jumped directly onto the warship. The rays of light all over his body rose sharply, streaks of golden light, which offset each other with the thunder that fell from the sky. However, Kuzan had frozen the sea before, and now Marine retreated, there was no way to go. Abandon the warships, notify the headquarters and ask them to send warships to meet them. Ryokugyu gave an order with a livid face. Now is an emergency, and not a single second can be wasted. For this reason, many Marines directly jumped off the warship and ran cautiously towards the sea level. Ryokugyu Admiral, the phone bug has lost its ability to communicate. There was a reporter who looked anxious and hurriedly looked at the phone bug in his hand, like a dead parent, very decadent. Damn Nami. Gritting his teeth, Ryokugyu looked at Nami high in the sky, full of resentment. No need to think, the phone bug must have lost its ability to communicate with Nami. I can't take care of that much anymore, I'll disembark and retreat. Endless brilliance, dazzling light and darkness, visible to the naked eye, in the blue tide, a sword light shot into the sky from time to time, or a mess of abilities appeared. In short, at this moment, Marine panicked and was defeated directly, and even the warship was abandoned. However, the strange thing is that neither Fujitora nor Nami pursued the victory, but just watched Kizaru and others leave. Shirahoshi, it's your turn to shoot again. Nami held Shirahoshi, but did not shoot from beginning to end. Immediately afterwards, another wall of discoloration fell on the sea. Afterwards, Nami and Fujitora went straight back, because the First Emperor pirates are now surrounded by enemies on all sides, and some lifeless garbage is biting the First Emperor pirates. Although these rubbish are very weak, they can't stand a lot. If they are allowed to kill, loot and loot in the First Emperor pirates, then where will the First Emperor pirates' face be put? After all, the losses caused by it add up to a lot, but it is not a small amount. Therefore, from the beginning, Nami and the others did not plan to keep Marine, because the real opponent was to chop off those claws in the shadows. As long as Chinluo returns, then Marine will be destroyed. The Sea of Thunder took half an hour to dissipate, so that the entire sea was covered with corpses and ice block, and in the distant sky, Kizaru and the others were panting and stopped. Turning around and looking at the embarrassed figures, Ryokugyu's face was distorted, just because the Marines who had been subjugated this time were different. Preliminary estimates, there are not even 50, that is to say, this time, their Marines are almost wiped out. At a glance, basically all people with high strength are still alive, or they are lucky people. Compared with before the expedition, it is a world of difference. But the disaster is far from over. Boom, boom. The entire sea trembled, and a behemoth stronger than before broke through the sea. Once again, the only remaining Marine, surrounded by countless sea kings. Damn. Cursing, some exhausted Marines were directly engulfed and turned into food. For a while, screams continued, golden light flashed, and there was another battle on the scene. Emperor pirates, as early as when Chinluo and Red the Aloof fought, some young people stretched out their claws, and these were all notorious pirates. What's more, there is the Kingdom of Darkness, which controls the big hands and robs the wealth of the first emperor pirates everywhere. Unlike the pirates, they also know how to cover it up. People of different identities all want to tear off a piece of fat from the first emperor pirates, and what gives them so much courage is the upcoming war. Just a little bit of trouble, you can reap countless wealth. Why not do it? As for the great bird, whether it is still alive or not is a question. Therefore, looking at it from deep space, you will find that in all directions, countless thugs of all kinds, with hideous faces, are unscrupulously plundering the wealth of the marginal towns of the first emperor pirates. You must know that the first emperor pirates are notoriously racially diverse and wealthy. Even a commoner, as long as he is not lazy, will have some small money at home. Therefore, robbing these commoners is a good choice. It can be found that within the boundaries of the first emperor pirates, the smoke of gunpowder is everywhere, and the fire is soaring into the sky. Ha ha, kill it for me, let these pariahs see how powerful we are in plundering the pirates. What the first emperor pirates, let us kill. 0. It was extremely vicious. On a pirate group, countless pirates poured out, all of them staring at civilians frantically. As long as they were men, they were all cut off, while women, beautifully dragged directly into the dark, forcibly made an indescribable tear. Call. Of course, the first emperor pirates are not without resistance. In the face of some weak pirates, every town still has defenses. Only the villages suffered heavy losses. Ha ha, there is actually a long-legged woman. These long legs are really pink and tender. After I have played it, I will auction it. There is a pirate, with glowing eyes, looking at this long-legged woman who is obviously different from ordinary people, with saliva dripping from her mouth. You must know that some special races are very valuable. For this reason, women and wealth are the primary targets of these predators. Here is the first emperor pirates. Our king will kill you. Very scared, only about 15 or 6 years old, but he mustered his courage, gritted his teeth and looked at the pirates surrounded in front of him, threatening. Ha ha, what did she say? The emperor, the first emperor. There are pirates, holding blood-stained swords, and laughing at the surrounding companions. It's a question of whether your emperor can still live. If the first emperor dares to appear here, I will kill him with a knife. It was very arrogant, and the pirates around were laughing wildly. Before your king comes, you should serve Lao Su well. The strong man with a knife scar on his face grabbed greedily at this pitiful long-legged clan. The purpose was not to, it goes without saying. 2. Chapter 317 _ Whoosh. However, at this moment, a long spear cut across the arc and directly penetrated the strong man, nailing him to the ground, causing cracks in the surrounding ground. Who is it? Dare to take care of us plundering the pirates, courting death. Vigilant all over, the pirates around were all holding weapons, and their eyes were fixed on the direction where the spear flew. Boom. Falling down, people wearing Shuang team costumes, some holding long swords, some holding pistols, some carrying artillery, or big men with animals in the upper body, like demons, are looking around with suffocating arrogance. All pirates. According to preliminary estimates, this is a team of 10 people. Are the original inhabitants of Sky Island and the Shandians. Ever since Chin Luo solved Enel on the Island of God, they have been inquiring about the benefactor Chin Luo, and only recently did they learn that Chin Luo had created a kingdom, is the territory of the first emperor. So he came to take refuge. The Sandian, war ghost Weiapa's face was gloomy, his eyes were spitting fire, and the veins on his forehead jumped as he watched the scene of fire all around him. Lord Weiapa. Previously, the long-legged clan who was almost humiliated looked at Weiapa with tears in his eyes, full of admiration. Master Weiapa, are you the incendiary cannon Weiapa of the first emperor pirates? A pirate's expression changed greatly, and he looked at Weiapa in panic. Devil fruit ability, take it, and kill the rest. With cold eyes, Weiapa didn't pay attention to these pirates at all, because the two sides were not on the same level at all. As for the reason for winning the devil fruit ability, this is also a special request of Qin Luo, because there is a need for experimental research at present. With the army of the first Emperor pirates, the arrogant invaders began to flee, leaving countless corpses along the way. Moreover, with the appearance of these armies, it was like a heart booster, which brought a lot of encouragement to the residents of the first Emperor pirates. They even followed behind the army, specifically picking out some pirates who were alone or who were still breathing, and avenged the snow haters. With the emergence of the real power of the first Emperor pirates, the situation is directly one-sided, or there are many powerful people among the intruders, but as long as these people are discovered, apart from fleeing in a panic, the rest is captured. You must know that this operation is based on 10 people as a team. There are artificial abilities, swordsmen, technology, fighting techniques in the face of this kind of combined attack. Even some pirates with a reward of hundreds of millions will not be able to. It's a bit tricky, not to mention the fact that they may encounter the first Emperor pirates' army at any time, which will cause them to be unable to concentrate on fighting, and their strength will be greatly reduced. Strictly speaking, these pirates who can't wait to carve up the first Emperor pirates are all blind guys, because compared to these cannon fodder, the real greedy people in the dark haven't started yet. This is also the reason why the first Emperor's army can destroy these cannon fodder so smoothly, because the greedy people who have not yet shot are some good guys. Compared with these early birds, their experience is undoubtedly much higher. The first bird with a gun, at any time, is sensible. It is conceivable that after this invasion, the fame of Wayapa, Supernova and others will be widely spread in the first Emperor pirates and even in the sea. Moreover, with the return of Perona and others, all the pirates who attacked the first Emperor pirates were ruthlessly killed, and the forces that intervened in secret were thoroughly investigated. I believe that as long as Qin Luo returns and the situation is stabilized, when the time comes, the new world will once again bleed into a river. In the distant sky, the clouds are receding, and above the boundless blue sea, the divine bird Phoenix, with sparks flowing, is unusually beautiful, and it just crossed the sky in the blink of an eye. With his eyes closed, his body was burning with weak flames. Qin Luo's breathing became very slow, and it was visible to the naked eye. On the exposed upper body, some bone-stained wounds had healed, forming hideous scars, like a centipede. Spread out. Even if it is repaired as much as possible, some scars will leave traces. Passing through the territory of the first Emperor pirates, Qin Luo frowned as he looked at the place where there was still some fire below. Most of the time, Qin Luo's physical strength has recovered most of it, and now he is no longer as weak as he was at the beginning. At this moment, in the sky, a thunderbolt passed quickly, and appeared beside Qin Luo in the blink of an eye, revealing a figure. Immediately after, the space was torn apart, and Nami, with Shirahoshi, also appeared. Qin Luo. Nami looked at the slender figure standing in the air and said hello. Marine solved it. Looking at the ground where the flames remained under his feet, Qin Luo asked without raising his head. Well, it has been solved. With the ability of me and this coward, if Marine hadn't run fast, the entire army would have been wiped out. Nami frowned as she looked at the smoke billowing under her feet. Obviously, as expected, a lot of rubbish that couldn't sit still jumped out impatiently. Withdrawing his gaze from under his feet, Qin Luo glanced at Shirahoshi flatly, and shrank his neck in fright. If it wasn't for Nami's body that couldn't stop her, she would have shrunk behind Nami by now. You guys clean it all up, I don't want anyone alive, not even one. With no expression on his face, after speaking, Qin Luo disappeared directly on the spot, turned into firelight, and disappeared into the depths of the first Emperor Pirates continent. Zeus, send this coward back, and I'll clean up the rubbish. Unable to bear it, Nami disappeared directly, and the vast and boundless observation hockey quickly radiated past. Immediately after, Nami stepped on her feet and disappeared. Perona and others, and now the return of Nami and Fujitora, there is no doubt that those pirates who invaded the first Emperor Pirates have all turned into corpses. In fact, Nami and Fujitora didn't intervene at all, because before they came back, the trouble was solved by the army led by EPUB, and even if there were any leftovers, they were forcibly killed by the returning Corona and others. The situation gradually subsided. At the dawn of dawn, a new day has come again, and the prestige of the first Emperor pirates has radiated to the whole world. Time, back to Marine. Return, the Marine army led by the three Admiral Kizaru, Kuzan, and Ryokugyu the ship attacked the territory of the first Emperor, but the result was just as soon as it entered the sea, and before it reached the territory of the first Emperor, the entire army was wiped out. Tens of thousands of Marine elites were buried at the bottom of the sea, and even their bodies were not brought back. Undoubtedly, this made the faces of Kizaru and the others as dark as the bottom of a pot, because the Marine behind them now didn't even have a double 10. The only ones alive were some powerful Vice Admiral and some lucky Rear Admiral. Loss was heavy, and it was hard to imagine Kizaru's frustration and anger at the moment. Because this is no longer a heavy loss, but it is no different from the entire army. The most important thing is that the other party only dispatched 2 people, a fish, and a black cloud that does not have a strong sense of existence. Just this lineup turned their 3 Admiral, dozens of Vice Admiral, and tens of thousands of Marine elites into losers and turned into skeletons under the sea. Chapter 318 _ Angry, it almost blew the hearts of Kizaru and Ryokugyu and others. However, the loss of Kizaru and others is not the only one, because the Marine headquarters is also in flames and dilapidated at the moment. What happened? Kizaru and the others, who had returned in embarrassment, looked at the Marine headquarters with smoke billowing and crumbling walls. If it weren't for the striking sign, they all wondered if they had gone wrong. Standing on the cracked shore, Onagumo stared in disbelief. An hour later, in the temporary meeting room, there was very little smoke at the moment, the atmosphere was overwhelming, and every Marine's face showed a heavy expression. Sengoku was still wrapped in bandages, and more or less, the entire hall was injured. Sitting in the first place, Sengoku took a deep breath, trying to suppress the restlessness in his heart, but the more he tried to suppress it, the more intense the anger became. Blue veins jumped, Sengoku's eyes were red, bloodshot inside, he slapped his palm on the desk, looked down and lowered his head, far from the casual Garp he used to be, and yelled, "Garp, you bastard, it's you again. The son of the dragon." 26 In the past, Garp would have raised his head, stiffened his neck, and said something to Sengoku, but now, as usual, he was embarrassed and didn't know what to say. The Revolutionary Army, the damn Revolutionary Army, has grown to such a degree that it must be destroyed. Panting, the anger in Sengoku's heart almost ran through his head. Matter is going back to a few days ago, when Marine was preparing to attack the first Emperor's territory. Marine headquarters welcomed several uninvited guests. As soon as Garp led Admiral out of the Marine realm, the storm appeared. There is no end, the sky that was clear a second ago was covered by dark clouds in the blink of an eye, and thunder and lightning flashed. On the distant sea level, connecting the heavens and the earth, a waterspout rolled with countless seawater, thunder, and hurricanes. That visual impact, like nature's anger, made the entire Marine headquarters shaken in an instant. In front of the power of heaven and earth, Marine headquarters, like an ant, shivered. This is also the reason why Sengoku recalled Garp, but when Garp urgently returned to help, the storm that overturned the river was already like a villain, forcibly pressed Marine to the ground and rubbed it for a while. In the face of natural disasters, it is far beyond what humans can resist. And the storm is just a prelude, because the final crisis, followed by the storm, almost wiped out the Marine. By the Revolutionary Army leader Long, Sabo, Ivankov, Shang, and Amazuna, as if no one was in the realm, they forcibly pushed the entire Marine headquarters. Even Sengoku, wounded by the dragon, might not be sitting here now if it wasn't for Garp's quick return. There is no doubt that Marine suffered a heavy loss this time, and even Sengoku could not bear it. Damn dragon. Sengoku has never been so gaffed that, now, like a powder keg, full of explosions. As long as you think of the dragon's ability, Sengoku is like a dead parent, ugly to die. If Shinluo is the incarnation of the sun, which can burn everything, then the dragon is the incarnation of the weather, which can also destroy everything. The natural disaster hurricane that swept the marine headquarters was caused by dragons. It can also be seen from here that Logia has the ability to subvert the world. This is also the reason why Long established the Revolutionary Army, and under the siege and suppression of the behemoth of the world government, he was able to achieve such success. As we all know, there were three major weapons in ancient times that could destroy the world. In some respects, Long, Shinluo, Whitebeard and others were the living Hades, sea kings and heavenly kings. However, things have happened, and the primary purpose is to solve the difficulties, not to get angry. As a marshal, Sengoku knew this, so he just vented and regained his composure. Sengoku, who had regained his composure, turned his gaze to Kizaru and the others, to be precise, Kuzan. Kuzan, do you really have no information about the first Emperor Shinluo owning the Sea King? Clenched his fists tightly, although Sengoku's face was calm, the blood vessels on his arms under the bandages were protruding at the moment. Kizaru and others half an hour ago, Sengoku couldn't believe it. Like a heavy hammer, he almost suffocated Sengoku. Sengoku can't think of other possibilities for being able to control the Sea Kings, except the legendary ancient weapon Sea King, and what worries Sengoku most is that the Sea King is suspected to be in the hands of the first Emperor Shinluo. Opened his mouth, Kuzan looked complicated, looked at the eyes around him, sighed, and said expressionlessly, I really didn't know the news that the first Emperor actually had the Sea King. I already noticed something wrong at the first time, but still it's over. Everyone was speechless, their faces gloomy. The next day, the whole world was boiling, and endless news birds flew all over the world, leaving countless newspapers behind. Outside the number, the latest news, the battle between the first Emperor and Red the Aloof, has already fallen. During the battle, the strongest man in the world, the five emperors Whitebeard, singled out the first Emperor and Red the Aloof. Marine wants to sneak attack on the first Emperor's territory. The Revolutionary Army has attacked the Marine headquarters. The countless evil pirate groups in the New World also attacked the territory of the first Emperor. A piece of news spread all over the world on the second day. The energy contained in it was simply unimaginable, and the consequences of it caused an unparalleled storm in the entire sea. At this moment, people of different races all over the world, even in remote places, have several newspapers in their hands, and the news registered on them is all related to the New World's top overlord, the first Emperor's territory. The names of big figures are in different positions above, exuding the most dazzling light. Among them, the names of the first Emperor, Whitebeard, and Red the Aloof are even more resounding. Shao, followed by the Revolutionary Army, Marine, and the names of many legends, were also published on it, shining brightly. Hey, that's not true. The four seas, the Great Root, the New World, the various kingdoms, whether they are pirates or businessmen, people of different identities, looking at the news published in the newspapers in their hands, are a little unbelievable. Whitebeard alone intervened in the war between the first Emperor and Red the Aloof, and a cross-century battle occurred, and the three emperors scrambled. There are pirates, and their blood is boiling, because just thinking about the melee of the three emperors makes it difficult to extricate themselves. You know, this is the five emperors, and there are still three, each with their own battalion. Many people can't wait to watch it on the spot, because this is unprecedented. How could it be possible? Red the Aloof and Whitebeard were killed by the first Emperor. However, the further down you look, the more explosive, even subversive, the information in it. This can't be true. There were pirates, staring at the picture in the newspaper, which clearly showed the head of the first Emperor holding Red the Aloof with one hand, and finally Whitebeard was drowned. Picture in the sun. And next to it, the cause of the incident is clearly marked. First Emperor pulled Red the Aloof and was submerged by the sea, but the first Emperor rushed out of the sea with the heads of the five emperors Red the Aloof in his hands. Immediately afterwards, another sun was summoned, drowning Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world. Far, the first emperor's war with Red the Aloof, as well as Whitebeard's intervention, has come to an end. Chapter 319 _ In this battle of emperors, the first emperor became the winner, destroyed the power of the 5 emperors Red the Aloof, and also killed the strongest man in the world, Whitebeard. There is also the intervention of the world government, the brilliance of the CPO, and the 3 god kings under Red the Aloof. Even if these are no longer there, they still exude the final warm-up and turn into rumors. And this is only part of the climax, because there is still a lot of information, which makes the whole world boil. For example, when the Battle of the Emperor started, Marine suddenly launched an attack on the territory of the first emperor, but in the end, for some unknown reason, he was completely defeated and paid tens of thousands of Marine elites. Immediately after, the Revolutionary Army took action and launched an attack on the Marine headquarters. As a result, the Marine headquarters is now in ruins. The situation can be said to be bleak. There were also some pirate groups that fell on the Shihuang's territory, but in the end, they were all suppressed by the army of the Shihuang's territory, and no one survived. All the existences in the sea, as long as it is a well-known force, have different emotions, and all eyes are fixed on the territory of the first emperor. Some forces are terrified, while some forces are sneering on the sidelines. This time, even though Shihuang's territory had already won the victory, the price paid was equally heavy. With Shihuang's murderous and devoid of conscience, he would definitely have bloody revenge afterwards. There are only a few targets for the primary air attack, such as the Marine, the world government, and the scattered forces that have fallen to the ground on the first emperor's territory this time. There are many of these scattered forces, perhaps they are pirates, or the kingdoms of the New World, but these can all involve a large piece of soil. According to the rules of doing things in the first emperor's territory in the past, then this time, the New World will once again be filled with blood and bones. With the huge territory of the first emperor now, it can be said that he has dominated the New World without saying a word, but if he is determined to take revenge, no one can resist, including the only remaining 5 emperors with red hair. But now, Marine suffered heavy losses, and it was difficult to intervene in the New World, because their primary purpose was how to resist the retaliation of the first emperor's territory. As for the world government, it was even more difficult to do so. After all, they themselves are a mess. This time, the sea will be dyed red aga and diaresis. All over the sea, countless strong people, after reading the contents of the newspaper, apart from the shock at the beginning, the rest is speculation about the follow-up. Undoubtedly, this time, the world shook again. As long as that man speaks a word, countless lives will be buried with him. Of course, there are some good-hearted people, or those who see the big picture. No matter what status these people are in, he may be an ordinary person or a top-level person. Power, but at this moment, no one dared to touch the brows of the first emperor's territory. Therefore, the world is waiting, and it can be found that during this period of time, the Great Root and the Four Seas, some powerful pirate groups, have become more and more unknowingly. This phenomenon occurs in various places, especially the New World. Among them, it may be because of fear of being implicated, or it may have been to avoid revenge from the first emperor's territory. In short, in the New World, especially around the sea area near the first emperor's territory, I don't know if it is a psychological effect or a sense of tension, causing some people to feel even breathing is not the same as usual. Because now, it is more depressing and heavier. For this reason, in these days, countless forces have opened meetings, racking their brains to deal with what may happen next. After all, danger is often the opposite of opportunity. In this huge danger, there must be unimaginable opportunities. As long as you seize the opportunity, it will not be a dream to soar into the sky. Of course, this kind of vision is not something that ordinary people can find. After all, those who can have this idea are all wise or bold. Hazy, the originally dark sky, the morning sun first shines. Gradually, the eastern coastline shows a red glow, and a new day is gradually coming. When you climb up and look at it, you will find that the leaders of the ethnic groups, who are full of dust, have boarded the central city of the first emperor's territory from all directions, and rushed towards the hall. Today is the beginning of the first emperor's meeting. Some people look at the sun sticking out from the east, tighten their collars, and unconsciously feel a chill that makes their backs chill, because everyone knows that starting from today, the sea will be red with blood again. The Tauren clan, the Longsho clan, the Fishman clan, the Little Human clan. The leaders of various ethnic groups living in the first emperor's territory greeted each other one after another, and everyone's faces looked heavy. However, when they stepped into the palace, everyone jumped in their hearts and trembled, just because there was a figure on the empty throne at this moment. In a hurry, everyone bowed their heads and rushed into the hall, not daring to breathe, they just swallowed. Especially those who came later, the more afraid, and the cold sweat on their foreheads kept falling. Everyone has a question: why did the king appear so early? And it seems that he has appeared for a long time. If it was in the past, it would have been impossible. Are you going to kill them today? Specifically waiting for them. There are thousands of people in the entire hall, but now, needles can be heard, one by one, their heads lowered, as if there is something on the ground, staring at them without blinking. The representative of the Fishman clan, Shaxing, and the head of the villain clan, Gan Chao, were also uneasy, because apart from the man on the throne, the rest of the first emperor pirates did not even arrive. What's happening here? Qin Luo came to the main hall and sat alone on the throne. He started thinking wildly, opened his eyes in a daze, and even closed his eyes now, waiting for the start of today's meeting, which lasted for several hours. This action terrified the people in the hall enough, Zhao Lihao, so now, even panting is suppressed. Fortunately, this suffocating atmosphere did not last long, because one after another, important members of the first emperor's territory, that is, the people of the first emperor pirates, slowly began to come. To be honest, Perona and others were also shocked when they came, because according to the past, Qin Luo was the last to arrive, but looking at the guys below with cold sweat, it was not difficult to get the result. Compared with these fearful and nervous patriarchs, Perona and others have nothing to worry about. Diaresis cough. On the high platform, the closest place to Qin Luo, Nami was wearing a hip-packed skirt and gold glasses, holding stacks of documents in her towering arms, breaking the silence. Qin Luo, this time the loss of our first emperor's territory is a big word. Following Nami's opening, Qin Luo on the throne opened his eyes, and there was a deep cold inside. Chapter 320 Although we won this war, we also paid a price. Some elite troops died in this war. Among them, the world government dispatched the CPO, and Marine also invaded us. Although it was blocked in the end, it was a provocation for our first emperor's territory, because Marine's dispatch has led to many new the invasion of the world pirates, kingdoms and other forces. Quote, "We have lost tens of thousands of soldiers, and our wealth is more than 100 billion. The most important thing is that the towns and villages in the border areas of the first emperor's territory have been severely damaged, and it is difficult to estimate the casualties among residents." Quote. Pulling out the documents, Nami looked solemn. No matter whether the report was exaggerated or narrowed, the news was enough to make the atmosphere of the entire hall drop to freezing point. With cold eyes, after listening to Nami's report, it took a long time for Qin Luo to reveal his killing intent. What are the results of the investigation? This time, there are pirates and kingdoms who invaded our first emperor's territory. Among them, there are many pirates, big and small, and the kingdom is the same. I have already investigated half of it, and some are still undetermined. From now on, find out for me one by one. All those who have a little relationship will be wiped out for me. All the pirates, all the kingdoms involved, no matter who they are, will not stay. With murderous intent, Qin Luo clapped on the throne with one hand, his eyes grim. In an instant, before I knew it, 3 months had passed. Since 3 months ago, because of the order of the Emperor Shi Huang of Shi Huang's territory, an unparalleled slaughter has been launched across the entire sea. This round of slaughter has spread from the New World to the Great Root, and even the Four Seas have been affected. Among them, the pirate groups that were wiped out, ranging from several million to hundreds of millions of rewards, were all spared, and all were mercilessly slaughtered. Many of the pirate groups were forcibly destroyed when they were inexplicable. As a result, many pirate groups in the New World did not dare to sail during that time, either fleeing to a place far away from the First Emperor's territory, or fleeing to an uninhabited island. And the kingdom is even more tragic, as small as a small country with only 1,000 people, and as large as a kingdom of tens of millions, hundreds of millions, all of which were ruled by the First Emperor's territory, destroyed the island and disappeared into the deep sea. It can be said that in those 3 months, Ihong was full of bones and bones. For the madness of the First Emperor's territory, no force currently dares to touch the bad. As a result, the anger of the sky and the resentment of the people, countless newspapers have interpreted the cruelty of the First Emperor's territory. The world once again saw the domineering of the First Emperor. If it is said that who has a better reputation in this massacre, then it is not the First Emperor, nor the 5 heaven rings, but the First Emperor's subordinate Sun Wukong, because many big pirates are planted on it. In this massacre, Thor Nami, Hitsugaya Toshiro, and Sun Wukong also clashed with the 5 emperors' red hair. The reason is that many pirates, or people from the kingdom, fled to the red-haired sea. There was some friction between the two sides, but the top leaders of the two sides, the First Emperor and the Red Hair, did not come forward. This incident was reported once, and some people thought that the Battle of the Emperor would break out again. In the end it didn't happen. Of course, there are still many pirate groups that have soared this time, such as the original Whitebeard pirates, and now Fire Fist Ace's reputation has reached an unprecedented height. In some places, it has been considered as a new 5 emperor. There is also the Straw Hat Pirates. For some reason, they also sheltered many people, thus causing friction with the First Emperor's territory. In short, the whole New World is in chaos, and the chaos has continued except in a few places. Compared with the New World, the Great Root is much better, but despite this, it is also pursued by the army of the First Emperor, CGAC, and as for the Four Seas, it is more stable. Of course, with so many enemies, even in the First Emperor's territory, it is impossible to be absolute, because the pirates who dare to come out will have a brush more or less, so that in the past 3 months, the First Emperor's territory has also only one part is destroyed, as for the other part, there is nothing to do. 3 months later. New World, Marine Headquarters. At this moment, the most troublesome thing for Sengoku is how to prevent the madman's revenge. For this reason, after brainstorming and collective meeting, Sengoku and others decided to secretly transfer some Marines to the Great Root. With the construction of these years, Marineford, which was torn apart at the beginning, has been restored to its full appearance. For this reason, although somewhat unwilling, Sengoku is also planning to abandon the base here. If possible, Sengoku didn't want to give up here. After all, it took countless Marines' lives to stand firm, but now, he had to evacuate. From the moment of attacking the First Emperor pirates, Sengoku had expected this result, either destroy the First Emperor pirates, and Marine would dominate the New World from then on, or fail and return to the Great Root. If he resisted hard, it would only cause Marine a heavy loss. After all, the current First Emperor pirates, Marine may really not be able to fight, and when the First Emperor came down, it was estimated that the place would collapse. If it was 3 months ago, Sengoku was not worried at all and had no idea of returning to the Great Root at all, but 3 months, that guy didn't retaliate against Marine. What does this mean? It shows that the guy is preparing, otherwise, he would have already done something with Marine. At present, for that guy's son, Sengoku has not thought of a way. For this, he can only step back and give up all these years of efforts in the New World. The thought of giving up these years of hard work made Sengoku furious, because all of this was done by those idiots in the Holy Land. The good situation was just destroyed, which made Sengoku very angry. However, the thought of the Gorosei 5 Elders compromise makes Sengoku uncertain, After all, things have already happened. This time, Gorosei 5 elders gave Sengoku a lot of compensation, such as recruiting the world again. Sengoku is solely responsible, and Marine's military expenses will be doubled, and some rights are also released to Sengoku. That is to say, in the past, the world government was afraid that Marine would become bigger, so it was restricted in some aspects. Sashikai was released. Don't underestimate this limitation. If there were no such limitations in the early years, with Sengoku's leadership and the wisdom of Crane and others, it is estimated that Marine is far from what it is now. However, it is too late to say this now. Only by evacuation can the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, otherwise a hard resistance will only put Marine in a dangerous place. Reluctant he is, Sengoku can only reluctantly cut the flesh. After all, there is no regret medicine in the world.